You could have heard this episode for 8 hours early on our Patreon, patreon.com/indieheadspodcast. By joining us for as low as $1 a month, you'll receive episodes early and gain access to our Discord server. All of our upcoming episodes will be up on our Patreon for 8 hours before it hits our public podcast feeds. But if you're hearing this via our Patreon feed, we thank you so much for your support. We especially want to thank our Real Ones patrons, including Becca Etienne, Georgia Mikowski, Rana Cruz, Alan S., Josiah Duncan, Jenna LaFleur, Matt Cameron, Right in the Back of My Dracula, Pablo Escobar's Hippos, Jackson Chris, Alec Felder, Sandy Nemo, Jeremy Bowl, Alex Gershmanoff, Jonathan David, Sarah Moore, Max Kapazinski, Mark Barry, Aaron Hilsamer, Darian Fisher, Garris420, Cal50, Doodoo Ass, Chris Wade, Jacqueline Kataga, Jake Wald, Eraserhead Baby, Rob Marino, Max, Dylan, Waffle113, Gavin 490 Freak, and Maze Farms. To become everyone, consider supporting us for $5 a month on Patreon, where you'll see a bonus episode every month and get a shout out at the top of the pod. Anyways, though, enjoy the episode.
Hello, welcome back. It's another episode, Best New Podcast. We're back. Took a little, not barely a break. We're back after a week, and we're back for 2011. We've started year number 2 of our long journey through the 2010s of Pitchfork's Best New Tracks, going through every week a different curated playlist that has some of the highs, mostly the highs, but some of the lows, and we're gonna really see quite a spectrum on this week.
There's some other stuff in there too. I wouldn't call it high or low, but I call
this is gonna be quite a journey. But this is a really exciting episode for a lot of reasons. First of all, we got some great guests on this episode. We have from the podcast regular appearer Dill. We have my usual co-hosts Rose and Matty both on the episode, and on this episode as well, we have Matty and I's co-worker at Planetary Group, and also a radio host on WXLU, I believe.
WHUP.
I'm really bad with station acronyms. I work in a radio office, and I'm terrible at it because I'm not on the radio team.
You're a publicist, Jackie.
Exactly. Yes, I know the name of every blog, and I don't know the name of every radio station, and that's why I work in the department I do. But very fun episode. This is really, like, we talked about it throughout the last couple episodes about how 2010 does not really feel like the decade to come as much as it feels like the death wail of the decade previous. Like, it's just a lot of 2000s music being done very expensively, whereas this is the first playlist that's like, okay, the decade has started now. Like, right away, this first run of songs is really like, we're really turning the page to a lot of artists that would come to define, like, the period of time in which us, the co-hosts of this podcast, had our musical brains formed. And we're going to get to some real foundational Matty and Jackie lore specifically on this episode. But right off the bat, how are you doing, Rusty?
Oh, I'm good. I'm fine. I've got my water. I've got my seltzer. I'm a radio host, so I'm always prepared, to talk a lot about music. So it's fine. 2011 was a great year. I'm excited to dig into it.
Gotta keep the pipes lubricated. You gotta get that booming radio voice.
I prefer hydrated, but thank you.
Oh God, yeah. This is, as Jackie said, there is one song on here in particular that is a very foundational text.
There are a couple for me in different ways, but yes, there's one in particular that we'll stop beating around the bush and we'll get there when we get there. But we got a lot of really great. A lot of these, the nice thing about this episode is that, like, a lot of these are, like, the first songs of, like, oh, here's new people crashing their way into that will become regulars of the sort of Pitchfork cast of characters for the next however many years. And right off the bat, we have a real great one of those. Rose, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but by any chance is King Krule one of your nominees for Anonymous Ass White Boy of the Week?
Quite possibly, yes. I mean, he has like 5 different like monikers to go off of.
True.
He's just like he is the most like looks like just some guy person I've ever seen.
He's not beating the allegations. Let's just say that.
On the review for this song, they say he, quote, looks like Rick Astley with Ellie Jackson of LaRue's haircut.
That's kind of funny. That's not terribly
so
inaccurate.
Good. That's like this is supposed to be, a positive review of them, and they're always just dunking on this guy. They're calling him his words grubby.
Yeah, everyone loves to give backhanded compliments to Mr. King Krule.
Like, if you're not like directly in like the Pitchfork sphere of like knowing who all of those people are, that just sounds like complete nonsense.
Yeah, let's rewind a little bit as we're talking about King Krule. King Krule's out getting ribs when he was known as Zoo Kid initially before he took on the King Krule name.
Really? I thought this was. Oh, I guess
It says Zoo Kid on the.
It was Zoo Kid. Then it's also Archie Marshall. Then it's also King Krule.
Because the King Krule EP came out in 2011, so I guess later that year is he rebrands and releases the King Krule EP, and then eventually Out Getting Ribs ends up on 6 Feet Beneath the Moon 2 years later.
Mm-hmm. And at the time, only 16 years old, a little wonder kid.
It's so
here.
crazy. I mean, like that King Krule EP holds up, and it's just like, how did you do this at your age? But yeah, very impressive.
Yeah. This song it's definitely not my favorite Krule song. It's
play,
not
play the
quite
snippet. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. Let me play the snippet. Sorry, we're recording at an unusual time.
We've done 2 afternoon
crazy.
pods in a row, though.
This is true.
I don't think the song is very good, but it is very funny to listen to.
I like it a lot. This used to be.
It just sounds like some guy like who uploaded his guitar noodling to SoundCloud, and then some other guy who's just got like this insane voice just went over just freestyling it.
It does have the unfortunate like situation of inspiring a million copycats who are just way worse.
That is true.
Yeah.
Like it's one of the things where when we were talking about some of the kind of washed out indie rock that we're talking about last week, like after the last decade, it's impossible to hear these guitar tones without hearing the dime a dozen people that have guitars that kind of vaguely sound like this. And it can have the effect of just sort of turning your brain off and make you not appreciate it. But I do like specifically King Krule, like these kind of very beachy sort of washed out reverby guitar tones. And I think the thing that makes it work with King Krule and the thing that would appeal right away is exactly what you're saying, Rose, is like the discordance of like how kind of pretty and dreamy his music sounded and how his voice sounded, which is an acquired taste now and then and always. It's either you were either all in on it pretty immediately or you were like, what the fuck is this, basically.
I always thought his stuff was kind of melancholy, though. Like, one of my favorite things to do always is make fall mixes. Like, I loved making seasonal mixes, fall more than ever. And I remember in 2011, this was song 1 on that mix.
Nice.
This is just like a nice little intro, and then it segued into like probably like No Age or something completely random, but it worked in my brain at the time.
It's my thing I miss the most about living in the Midwest or just a place with seasons is that like there was a specific time of year where it's like, it is fall now. I am going to listen to Interpol for a week and I'm just going to like soak in the melancholy. And that you can't really do that in Los Angeles. It's just sort of like, is it fall? I guess so. It still looks like summer outside and can be hard to kind of get in that headspace. But yeah, this album and the Ooze especially later, like I think that's my problem with this song is that I still love it, but there was a long period of time where this was like my favorite King Krule song, and now there's like other stuff he's done since that I'm like, okay, this is mainly the best songs on the Ooze. I think take what this song is doing and kind of refine it into something a little more.
I couldn't agree more. The Ooze is definitely, I think, his high water mark, and I feel like the last record, Man Alive, wasn't nearly as good as that. The Ooze like takes me back though to like again fall nights, because I feel like that record even came out in the fall. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think Man Alive. I want to say Man Alive was like a very like right before the pandemic.
It did come out right at the top of the pandemic, like around the time of the Car Seat Headrest record. I feel like,
and the Ooze was October 2017. So yes, you're exactly right. It was right in the middle of fall into winter.
Yeah.
It was like weeks away from meeting my now wife, and I remember like having a girl over at my apartment and playing that like on my balcony, being like, and she's like, I'm going on a date with someone else tomorrow. I'm like, great. Go enjoy Blade Runner 2049. You don't get it. It's fine. No, I remember like she came over
for her, and then it was all downhill.
No, but then I remember we actually watched Blade Runner, the original, because she'd never seen it. I'm like, come over. And then like we had some drinks, listened to King Krule, watched Blade Runner. She's like, I'm going on a date with someone else to see the sequel tomorrow. I'm like, oh. Now she's married to that guy, so it worked out. You know, good for her. It's fine.
But this particular song, like this was, I think for the people that were like early King Krule adopters, I think this was like the song for a while. I mean, Baby Blue is the one that's like a little bit more like of a kind of cross. Easy actually, I would say even more than Baby Blue, but like those ones.
Baby Blue definitely like took over what this song was doing with like 6 years later or whatever it was.
Yeah, both Baby Blue and Easy like translate this in the way that is even more ripped off by other indie rock people. Like that's really what the templates are more than this song. And this song was like in the same way that like 400 Lux or the song Ribs from Lorde is like the Real Head song, like for Lorde fans, it's like actually, if you're a real fan, that the best song is this one. Like that's what Out Getting Ribs was for King Krule for a while. And now that he's done some more interesting things and some less interesting things, it just kind of feels a little more like by the numbers King Krule. But yeah, I totally agree that The Ooze is by far his best work, and that Man Alive it was already an album destined to be forgotten because it came out at the worst possible time, but it was also just a really forgettable album.
Pretty mid.
Yeah.
It was just a very mid record, unfortunately. Yeah. And the Ooze, because again, I'm not sure when we'll talk about King Krule again on the series, but again, like
I think he has like one more.
And I'm pretty sure he had a best new track for the Ooze.
Like fall 2017 was bad for me because I was in Chicago. I was very depressed. I hated school, bad breakup, all that stuff. And like the Ooze was like one of the only albums I was listening to during that time, just like cold Chicago, like fall, winter. And like, yeah, so King Krule, very important. This song, again, not his best, but again, he was 16 fucking years old. Like this is again,
King Krule
a pretty impressive track.
Got two best new tracks for the Ooze, one for Check One and one for Dumb Surfer.
Matty, when you say you hated school, would you say your opinion goes so far as fuck school? Like, would you say fuck school?
Oh, yeah. Okay,
we got one down now. Just two to go, that's all we need.
We got a couple more to go.
But yeah, also, Portrait in Black and Blue also gets Best New Track in 2011, which we're not covering, but also a good song. They've covered a lot. Larry Fitzmaurice did 2 track reviews for the King Krule EP, one for Noose of Jaw City and one for Portrait in Black and Blue. So they were really on the bandwagon pretty much right away.
Am I misremembering? But I feel like especially when like 6 Feet came out, there was like discussion online of like comparing Archie to like Tom Waits, like he's the next Tom Waits and something like that, because he's got that like growling, crooning kind of voice with him. Maybe I'm just completely misremembering. Or maybe
I think that sounds right. I'm sure there definitely were people that would kind of throw that sort of thing around.
I wouldn't compare him to Tom Waits though. He's got such like a weird, Archie has like such a weird, deep like voice. Like at 16, like you're saying, he's 16 fucking years old singing like he's seen a lifetime. Like Tom Waits, I just think is like he's got too much scotch in his throat or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I think the difference is that like Archie, his singing style is clearly inspired by, he's like mentioned like Chet Baker in interviews, and like these kind of more like smooth vocalists that influence his singing style, even though he like the Pitchfork review for 6 Feet Beneath the Moon compares him to Isaac Brock, which is basically a nice way of saying that you can't sing prettily, but like it did add a sort of appeal to this music, because like there was something about the kind of melancholy guitars and like the atmospheres, especially once you get to the Ooze, like the sort of drunken stumble of his music, and like how that was like a big part of the appeal, and how his voice only further sold that sort of like atmosphere and kind of feeling.
But yeah, that's
good song. Not like my favorite, and definitely not as good as I kind of remembered it being, but I was still like, yeah, no, this is, I still get why we had King Krule fever in 2011 to 13.
Yes. Well then, Rose, what is our next song?
Ever since the hard right into swanky light disco on 2009's stunning Bay of Pigs, Destroyer's multitudinous music, oh my god, they talk about $10 words there, has developed a new kind of pulse. Here we find our girl-crazed hero, quote, chasing cocaine through the back rooms of the world over a glitzy, sack-smeared burble. Yet while the track's lush white powder vibe is decidedly high, Destroyer principal Dan Behar would be the quick to point out he's really just feeding somebody else lines. The scenes and characters aren't necessarily coming from his life, Wow, never would have guessed. And Behar, a consummate storyteller, no matter the subject, recounts the tooted-up fantasy land of its title track with a kind of outsider's remove. He checks in with the cokehead, offering something about a toga, then retreats into the pages of his bygone rock rags. Makes sense. The gruff Behar still an unlikely body mover, and the sleek Kaputt comments on late 1970s excess, even as it wallows in it.
I know we were talking about it off show before we went on the air, or whatever you want to say. Talk about cocaine music.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
this
absolutely.
song.
This is like that peak, like Steely Dan lounge stuff. That just
I mean, and this really feels like, I mean, we've been talking about kind of the laid-back indie sound really taking off in these first 2 years of the decade, but like this song really does feel like the moment that the Pitchfork crowd is like, you know what's good is yacht rock and disco and stuff like that, and kind of like we're only a few years away from Tame Impala Currents. Like this is where some of this stuff really gets kicked off. I think
It's the paradigm shift. It really is that move.
Exactly.
This is a new decade. This is a new way.
Kind of and even coming back to this now, like I'm definitely way more kind of soft rock pilled than I was at the time, and definitely resonating with this more than I did at the time.
Well,
I also really love. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I remember, like, not to sound like James Murphy, but like, I was there when like Destroyer's Rubies came out in whatever year it was, and I was like, I don't get it. His voice is annoying. It's whatever. And then this record came out, and I don't know if it was because of Pitchfork, if it was because of just where my head was at, but I was just like obsessed with this album. Like, I probably hear Kaputt once every 3 or 4 weeks, the song, and I'll go back to the album. Like, Destroyer is now like one of my favorite artists of all time. I actually have a funny story where I met Dan Behar. So I live in North Carolina, and I was at Merge 30 a few years ago. Of course, he was there.
Oh, you're there too?
I was there, yes.
Wow, I was there.
Oh my God. Well, did you go to Carburritos? Because everybody goes to Carburritos when you go to a show at the Cradle.
I did not.
Oh, next time you come, that's where you got to go. It's literally a block away. All the bands
noted. Like
all the bands go there before a show.
Go to 35.
Like, I saw all of the Mountain Goats there in December. Whatever. Not the story. Well, I'm in there. We go to our table, and right next to us at the next table is Dan Behar. I'm like, oh my! I'm like, I have to say something, and I'm like, there's a bunch of us, and I'm like, I know you're gonna say no, but would you like to come sit with us at our table? And he said to me, "quote I'm good. I'm just gonna sit here with my margarita and stew."
That's the perfect Dan Behar.
Yeah,
response.
I was like, I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm like, thank you, Dan Behar, for that memory.
That rocks.
Mm-hmm.
Matty,
I will say,
I'm currently trying to pull this up. I'm having difficulty. Are you gonna can you give me a search term to help me find? You know what I'm talking about? The Destroyer beer tumbler, where it's an entire tumbler that is just different pictures of Dan.
No, I don't think it's somewhere. It's a Twitter thread from friend of the show.
Oh, yes.
Tandem Felix.
I knew you would have. There's a thread of just Dan Behar holding different beers on stage.
Have you never seen Dan Behar live?
I have.
Okay.
No, but like,
I remember I've seen him solo twice. I've seen him full band once or twice. And I remember, like, between every song, he like goes down the exact same way.
I found
crouches
it.
down,
Perfect.
grabs a pint, swigs it back the same way, where all of his hair just fluffs back. Then he puts it down and sings the next song. And I'm like, it was hypnotic.
So
wonderful.
There were a few guys from that era that like did that as well. Like, I know Matt Berninger of The National like does that at every show.
Oh,
still.
yeah.
A lot of Stella. I think like Dan Behar is first and foremost a Stella guy.
He was probably
Is the
trying
vibe
to get
they
like,
from him.
like a deal. Like, hey, let me be your spokesman.
There's a couple Peronis, a couple Sierra Nevadas.
Yeah.
Like he's got a very specific wheelhouse he works in.
When the Dos Equis guy retired, he probably applied for the job, and he did. And it's probably what, like, he has some unreleased album about it, probably.
Yeah, it totally makes sense though that this is like the one that crossed over, because more than any other Destroyer album, this is the one that like really, I think the new one kind of goes a little bit back toward this, but like really just like goes down smoothly. Well, even though it's every bit as kind of poetic and dense and kind of hard to get into. I mean, we did an episode of this, not me, but Alex and Jeremiah and Matty. Were you on that episode too? I forget the Kaputt.
The Kaputt retrospect. I was producer on that, so I was on that episode.
I think you were.
I was basically having to guide again because Jeremiah.
That is my favorite. One of my favorite episodes of the podcast. I believe it doesn't. It start with. Yes, a reciting, or it starts with the reciting of that story about the molasses flood that takes over.
The molasses flood that Alex.
Yes, it's one of my favorite episodes of the podcast ever. But even so, like I remember the podcast well, and I cannot remember like one thing Jeremiah actually said about this album because everything he said about the album, everything he said about the album,
I can't remember either. That was all the
He
episode.
was speaking in riddles, basically talking about this album.
Yeah.
And
I
that's
mean,
what
if you
any
remember
Destroyer
his blurb
fan
for this
sounds
record,
sounds
like the
to that
decade
like
list, like half of it is talking about the like portrait of the asp or the golden asp.
That was Jeremiah.
Oh my God.
On
It's
his
so
bullshit.
good. Like I get what he means now. He's so right.
I love this album though. Like even though I've never been like the biggest Destroyer fan outside of this album, like it makes sense why this one is the one that really like connects with people because it gives you so much just like really, really like breezy, satisfying kind of like rock and disco and pop kind of instrumentation that just makes all of the pretentiousness go down so smoothly. You know?
The record after it, Poison Season, is just as good. I wouldn't say it's better than Kaputt, but it's just as good. You know how it leans into like that
Poison
E
Season.
Street Band, like
You're
70s
preaching
Saturday
to the choir
night.
here. I think this is a very pro Poison
Oh, I know,
Season
but
cast.
I'm just speaking my one man's opinion here.
Totally.
Yeah.
Poison Season. I never listened
Poison
to
Season
Ken.
was my.
I don't know how well.
I don't think
Ken
anyone
did that.
does.
The last three are like part
I
of
like
a trilogy.
Ken.
They're all good. I love the new one. The new one's one of my favorites of the year. It's like June.
I really like Have We
Cowbells.
Met a
Very
lot.
New Order. Love it.
I love June. I do wish that the new one was what he said. He said he originally started out with the idea to make his new album a share album that has a consistent
the one beat. Yep.
Yeah, like I do want to hear that because that sounds like awesome. That sounds like my favorite Destroyer album if that had happened. But I do like the new one. It got my attention. Have We Met is the one that like doesn't exist to me.
Again, that's
It's like
Have We Met was
simultaneously
pretty-
going through the motions, but it's also still pretty good.
But it's just one of those things. Like if you made an album in the pandemic and it wasn't like insanely memorable, I've forgotten.
It was like January. It was like January 2020.
Yeah, it was a pre-pandemic
Anything
one.
that came out in January to March of that year is just lost to time forever. Like there was a US
Exactly.
Girls record that's like pretty good,
did-
and like
didn't
I'm the
Childish
only one who ever talks about it.
Okay, we gotta stop.
The Childish Gambino album from March, whatever the one that has the date on
Nobody
it.
remembers that. Nobody.
Came out.
Not
Yeah.
even you. You're lying.
I am lying. It's true.
Okay, we need to stop talking over one another. We need we Kaputt, great song, fantastic song. One of my favorite facts about Kaputt is that Dan Behar recorded most of the vocals while just laying down on a couch. It's perfect. It's great. Hang on a second. I'm feeling a little chilly. I feel like there's a chill wave.
There is
Come
a
on.
very chill wave coming
Come
on.
on.
We got a very chill wave going upon us. Rose, what is our next song?
Oh, buddy, it is that Toro y Moi.
This is the Toro y Moi song.
Y Moi? Y Moi?
Yes, y Moi. Who wrote the review
Toro y what?
for New Beat?
Shut up.
Is this a Larry Fitzmaurice?
No,
this is
it's
Nick
Nick
Nyland.
Nyland. I don't recognize this name, but yeah,
yeah,
a
this is from
lot of names on the blurbs I don't recognize this week. Like the last one was Paul Thompson, but not the Paul Thompson who does all the rap reviews I like on Pitchfork.
Yeah, there's two of them. The fact that there's two
Paul
Pitchfork
Thompson.
writers that do.
I mean, it's a pretty generic name. It's not
Mhm.
shocking.
Paul A. Thompson, good writer. I don't know the other Paul Thompson.
He's done a lot of stuff over. He's still. I think he still writes for Pitchfork.
I
he's
checked,
pretty
and like
consistent
Paul
contributor.
Thompson regular has not written a review since 2019.
It's been
Really?
too
Oh,
busy
okay.
with Comedy
I
Bang
haven't-
Bang, so that makes sense.
I haven't paid attention.
That's Paul
yeah.
Tompkins.
Anyway, story on Newbie. Play over it real quick.
Oh, this song, this was one of the surprises of the week for me. I hadn't heard this one before.
Really?
This is like, ooh.
Okay, Rusty, you gotta remember. So, part of the series, part of
It happens every week. No.
part of the running bits of the series is that one of the bits is that Rose basically lived under a rock from like in the early 2010s, just like lived under a rock. So much stuff that Rose has not heard yet.
And so
like I'm not sure how
album
many
was
songs
everywhere.
so far.
I think they were giving it away with like
Listen, there's gonna be a song later in this episode that you're just gonna like open mouth like I haven't heard.
Yeah, it
This
happens
probably
every week where someone
No,
does that.
it's even more severe than this.
Like
That's
last week,
worse, Rusty. It's worse. Okay.
Rose had never heard 6 Foot 7 Foot by Lil Wayne. Like there are just a couple that I was just like, I don't even know how you like went outside. Like not even like choosing to engage with it. Like just physically like. I guess you didn't go outside. Hey, I relate, but like, I this song, I mean, this is partly influenced by my California brain, and is how Toro y Moi was fucking everywhere, dude. Like in terms of, we were talking last week about Flying Lotus. If you want to just like put together the like trilogy of like music people would be playing if I was smoking weed in high school, like this is in the Mount Rushmore of artists. I saw Toro y Moi live a couple of times, not in this era. I think like a little bit. Trying to think when. It would probably be like around Anything in Return, I think, is when I get like really into Toro y Moi. But this song is like his big moment, I would say, and for good reason. The song rules.
This was off of Underneath the Pine, I think, correct. Which was like the album where I think he like officially crossed over into like Urban Outfitters core, where everyone was like, I mean,
Urban Outfitters core was invented in this moment in time. Like it's being created in real time.
As a former Urban Outfitters employee and store manager, yes. Like this and Kaputt, wall to wall 24/7. That's all we listen to, and Salem, of course.
Salem.
There you go.
Or 2 weeks ago.
So I guess Urban Outfitters had a Fader Fort special going on.
Seriously, you're not wrong. But no, like
this is fantastic.
This one's great, but I just remember the record before, Causers of This, like being my gateway, and like Miners was like my favorite song of 2010, or number 2 favorite song of 2010, and it's like still my favorite song by him, even though he's still made really good albums. Like the new one, Mahal, wonderful, great. Such a good album. And it's great to see how he's like been able to change with every album, like, you know, mostly for the good. Because like recently with the new record coming out, I like revisited all of his older ones, because I was like, when was the last time anyone listened to Boo Boo or whatever it was called?
Boo Boo's my favorite.
It's such a good record. It's not bad at all. Absolutely.
James Murphy voice. I was there in 2015 when everyone freaked out about Neon Vega International Night School.
Oh, we're gonna get to that at some point.
Yeah, we will get to that at some point.
I still don't get the hype to that one, but I gotta revisit the song.
I have always been an anti-Neon Indian person, but that's a personal beef.
Yeah, Vega International Night School. Just
that's a different
briefly touch on it.
I'm getting my guys mixed up.
You are.
There's some really good stuff on that record, and there's some stuff on that record that just doesn't hold up, especially the back half. The back half after like the Slumlord stuff is just like weak as fuck. But we're not talking about that. Toro y Moi, new beat, great song. One of the most disgusting album. One of the most disgusting album covers I've ever seen.
Not bad.
Get that out of your mouth. I don't want to see that.
It's like what, an orange, a tangerine.
I just need to shave. Like get a
shave. Shave your face, Toro. It's gross. Get out of here.
His name is Chaz Bear.
He's just enjoying a nice healthy snack. Can you blame him?
He's on a new beat. He's on a new diet.
He's on a new beat, and he's on a new beat. Anyways, Toro y Moi, great
Baseline is
track.
awesome.
But for the record, though, the better song on that album, Still Sound. That's the jam on that record.
Still Sound is really, really, really good.
Not that I don't like that one, but Still Sound.
New Beat is the one that's more like archetypal in terms of like what Toro y Moi sounds like to people that maybe even vaguely know what Toro y Moi sounds like.
Actually, really, before we continue, I just want to we've discussed this before. Beneficiaries of the GTA 5 soundtrack. Toro y Moi, definitely one of the biggest beneficiaries.
100%. Like that.
He has like 3 or 4 songs on the fucking soundtrack. It's insane.
Is Rose Quartz on there? Or
I think if I remember correctly, I want to say Harmon Changes on the soundtrack. So Many Details on the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Maybe Rose Quartz. I know for sure it's Harmon
So
Changes.
Many Details and Rose Quartz. That was like when Toro y Moi was like everywhere. Like those are the ones that really, really break him. But this is sort of the one that leads up to that.
Mm-hmm. What For is a bit of that's a dud.
I don't know. I think I went back to it recently because I feel like that was the last record before the new one that was, very like psych rock, using like live instruments as opposed to being all like electronics and what have you. And it holds up. Now, can I tell you a song title off of it? Is Buffalo on there? Is there a song called
Yes?
Buffalo?
Yeah,
there we go. I did it. Okay, I proved myself wrong.
I do know that fellow friend of the show and current Planetary employee Ted Davis is a big What For defender, because I think he highlighted one of the tracks on his list he did for Pace for the top 10 Toro y Moi.
But I think a lot of people, even people that do like that album, I think the kind of take on Mahal is that Mahal is him sort of saying, okay, let me do that, but like gets it right.
Course correction.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah,
but I do. Like you're right. Like especially as his career has developed, like his discography gets like more and more satisfying as he keeps doing different things. So, like Boo Boo was great as it is, but now that he's like done 2 different things after Boo Boo that are also good, it's fun to go back to that one and be like, all right, he gave us one of these, and then like Outer Peace is very different than that, where it's a little more slick and a little more kind of produced, and then immediately after that he goes in a different direction. Like each album he takes a kind of interesting pivot, even though they're all very much in the same chill ballpark, and they're all gonna get you there in terms of like something to just kind of put on a sunny day.
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't, listeners, you didn't hear or see this, but I pulled up the Pitchfork review for our next track and just immediately face palmed. Just immediately face palmed.
I'm looking at the blurb right now, and I don't even know who the writer is, and I can tell you immediately who wrote this. Like I knew it.
Ryan Domble. But Rose, what is our next song?
Well, let me tell you what Ryan told us. When a character called Wilhelm is shot in the thigh with an arrow in the 1953 Western, The Charge at Feather River, you hear a strangled yelp sound effect now known as the Wilhelm scream. Since that film, it's become a Hollywood inside joke used over and over to soundtrack men getting shot, stabbed, and falling from substantial heights in everything from Star Wars to Toy Story to Howard the Duck. At this point, it's a little more than a trivia question. James Blake's The Wilhelm scream does not contain the Wilhelm scream. It's not a joke for those in the know. In fact, the song is one of the most universal moments of his brief yet impressive career thus far.
It's exactly what Chris Wade said last week, which is that especially Ryan Domble's maybe the one most guilty of this, is that every single review says when man invented music in the year 1955, like they all start with like Wikipedia defines music as or whatever.
They assume you have never heard a note of music in your life, and they're just like, okay, so we got to get you up to speed on every detail of this.
Exactly. Yeah, it's very kind of almost condescending. But yeah, we talked about James Blake last week. This is our second James Blake song. We talked about Limit to Your Love last week, and this is sort of the different side of that, where Limit to Your Love is very much like more on the piano ballady side, but with that electronic element working in. And this one is more the one that feels like the template for the next 5 years of James. Like this song is the color in anything sounding song, I think, on the first album, and is kind of like what he ends up sort of like fulfilling the promise of later in his career. And it's really good. I like this song.
I was genuinely surprised. I actually like this one. I
was surprised too.
I've been an avowed hater up to this point, but like this one kind of got me. It reminds me a little of Hey What, which is a record.
That's an interesting comp. Yeah, I definitely get that. For me, the thing I think about with the song is just I think my brain disease of that. This reminds me of Shlomo, but like specifically
that too.
Specifically that really reverb little like woodblock percussion is very Shlomo. And the kind of moodiness of the synthesizers, like this is just very, like we talked about last week, so up my alley in terms of the kind of alt electronic music that was just all over Los Angeles at this time.
In my notes for this episode, I suggested that this was maybe the best song for this week, in my opinion.
Interesting. That's a bold take.
Hot take.
Yeah. I think because looking at this week, we have like 3 artists that at the time could have very easily defined what like R&B would have eventually became. Blake was one of those, and the other 2 we'll get to. One of them is notoriously that did not happen with. And with Blake, he never really put it together as well as he did, I think, on Self-Titled. Like, I remember hearing Wilhelm for the first time, and it was like revelatory, basically. And he never went kind of back to the highs that he got for this. He went more and more in the kind of piano ballad, like crooning kind of vibe with it. And I don't know. I think just the way he works with garage and dubstep on this as well. At the time, because you're coming in with Burial from a couple of years earlier, you're coming out with a couple of other UK artists that are really pulling from just a lot of these different genres, and the way they're able to pull all these together in this one pop song is just incredible.
Yeah.
This is not my favorite James Blake song, mind you, but like this is just an incredible incredible track. Like just again, the control that he holds with this track is just insane. Where it's simultaneously very like cold and minimalistic, but there's also just all these like little subtle things, and there's still a lot going on despite it being so minimal at times.
Like I think over time, like we've talked a little bit about future James Blake, like The Color in Anything is still my favorite James Blake album. I believe, Matty, you're the same boat there. And I think what happens over time is that I totally get why this one would be your favorite, because it's so like kind of bared down to its like most essential elements. And he's very like careful and methodical in this album in a way that he isn't in the rest. Like over time, he starts adding in more and more ideas. And a lot of those ideas I think are really good and lead to like better songwriting that he develops over time. But then I also think that as he has more ideas and writes these like longer, more sprawling albums, it gets less consistent, and there's less of a like really honed in, like you listen to songs like Wilhelm Scream and like Limit to Your Love, and it just like every single detail feels like super duper like obsessed over, but also it nothing ever feels like overcooked. It never feels like there's too much in the mix, or that there's like too much. It's like, and especially with this song, like Limit to Your Love is very intentionally contrasting the kind of two elements. It's like giving you this piano ballad and giving you the dubstep wobble and making them feel very distinct from each other. Whereas this song is where it like really kind of clicks together, and you're like, oh, I see how the electronic stuff that he's pulling from and the R&B stuff that he's pulling from is just like melding together perfectly. And that's why this one feels more emblematic, like you're saying, of like the sound of R&B to come in this decade. And, like,
I don't not like
PBR
James Blake.
R&B
He's
whatever.
fine, but this song, I think it's just like one good song, and that's just me. I don't know. I've always loved this song, though. This album's great. I always remember the music video. Remember music videos? They still make those, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Occasionally.
It's just good times.
I think what really makes like this era of James Blake so special to me, again, because like James Blake is like one of my gateway artists. Like that, like in 2013 when I was like getting out of the Odd Future hole, which hey, we'll get to that. We'll get to that hole at some point this episode. But like James Blake and Overground, which we'll talk about when we get to the 2013 episodes. Like, and especially this record, just like revelatory, being like, holy shit, like you can make music like this. This is insane. Just like very, you know, at the same time, like very minimal, but still like high emotions, you know, where just you can just get lost in the sounds and in the music. Like, even though, again, I'm not a fan of his most recent stuff, like James Blake will always just be like one of my favorite artists. Like, he's, and I think his approach early on was great because he was a producer who was writing songs, whereas now I think it's just like, oh, he's a songwriter that just so happens to be a producer on top of that.
Yeah, that's totally
that switch is really has made, I think, has just not been smart.
And now, like a lot of his producer like tricks that he uses, like When the Car Moves Ahead Beside You, I think is a great song, but that's a song where it really feels like he like wrote a song and then came up with like, what if I reversed these vocals and did this cool kind of esoteric thing on top of it? Whereas this first album, there's really like a kind of synergy between the kind of more abstract ideas he has and just like making it like feel very of a piece. It doesn't feel quite as like trying to comport itself in knots, you know?
Yeah, I remember his vocal production on this and on Overgrown, which is also an album that I really love, was very unique at the time. And nowadays it is also very dime a dozen. So now it seems like he's just pivoted straight towards his like natural inflections with it. And it just feels like,
and pivoted toward boring music.
It's just boring now. Yeah.
Friends That Will Break Your Heart is just such a snoozer of an album.
That album just does not exist. It came out less than 8 months ago.
I'm going to give you a quiz. Who are the featured artists on the album Friends That Break Your Heart? How many of them can you name?
I'm guessing he did one with Rosalia again, maybe.
No, that would have been good.
That would have been better.
I feel like there would be a Quavo feature.
No, that's funny.
There was a Travis Scott on Zoom Form.
There is 2 rap features on the same song that one of whom I've never heard of this guy.
Was one of them Joey Badass?
No.
Okay.
He had a song,
I don't know.
IDK? A song that's featuring JID and Suave. I don't know who that is. A long question mark there. There's a song featuring Monica Martin, who I do not know who that is. There's a bonus track with Slow Tie, and then there's the song with SZA. That's like the one actual pretty decent feature. But like that the SZA song is the best song on that album, and it's because it's like kind of cool to hear James Blake and SZA together because they have great voices. Like that's about it as far as like the real appeal and like reason why you'd return to that album again.
I will say he very much is like, at least like with like Monica Martin and Suave, it's like very much like it's UMG A&R's being like, hey, you should put these people on your album, James Blake. Give him a little, give him that indie cred that you have.
And Wife Guy albums can be good. They're not all Chance the Rappers, but that one...
He's not even married. This is Jamil. He's still making Wife Guy shit. Come on, man.
Assume Form was when he went Wife Guy, and we all like freaked out.
That album's good. That album is... I stick up for
good, but it doesn't quite hold up as well. It's all right. It's got some really good stuff.
You're all just saying things now. You're just
look. We love this white boy. Come on,
we love this white boy. For it. We love this white boy. All right, let's move on. Let's move on to our next.
Speaking of, we love this white boy.
Oh yeah, we got a crazy ass white boy coming up.
We do.
Oh. What is song number 5 on the playlist?
I feel like knowing how this conversation is about to get steamrolled, I feel like I should hand an introduction for this one over to other people.
Yeah, honestly, Jackie, you want to go for it?
I'm starting a timer on my phone right now.
Dylan and I are going to be very, very reasonable about this, and we're not going to go on too long because we've done podcasts about Tim Hecker before. Like this is we're on the record. We don't need to give the entire. I don't need to tell you Tim Hecker was born in like we're not going to get that deep on it.
Yeah, you don't want to turn into Ryan Dombal,
This is the moment that it is an important moment to capture because this is the moment that Tim Hecker goes from being like underground critical darling to like one of Pitchfork's and one of the kind of critical community. He becomes like really the post William Basinski poster child of ambient music. We're of course talking about Tim Hecker, the man from Montreal, the legend. The 6
big
foot
time Timmy Hex.
He's tall, right? I'm pretty sure he's tall.
I feel like he was like 6'4". Yeah, he's very lanky.
Definitely very lanky.
Tim Hecker.
Tim Hecker. We're talking, of course, about the piano drop, which is, as Lily pointed out before this episode, kind of an insane song to get. I mean, any Tim Hecker song would feel that way. It's not like there's a pick on Rave Death 1972 that's like, oh yeah, this is like the obvious like one you should have. I don't know, maybe like Into the Fog 1 would have been the song I would have picked, but the piano drop, the first track on Rave Death 1972, one of the shortest tracks on the album as well. It's only 3 minutes long. Matty, you can maybe hit play and give us give us some.
Yeah, let's dive in.
Let's vibe out to some Tim Hecker real quick.
But wait, while we're on this, can I just briefly read this excerpt I found from a website that purports to know the net worth and salary of Tim Hecker?
Tim Hecker.
Tim Hecker.
What is the net worth of Tim Hecker? What is the income source of Tim Hecker? We all know that it is impossible to say someone's total asset and how much he or she earns every month. According to the various source, there's an approximate asset that is net worth. So what is the current net worth of Tim Hecker? As of 2022, the current net worth of Tim Hecker is $15.
How much was that in Rave Death 1972 dollars? That's what I thought.
Oh god, yeah, account for inflation.
Yeah. The song was on in the car earlier as I was listening to this playlist on our drive home, and my wife's like, "Is there something wrong with the tires?" Let's pop this car.
No, that's just the sweet noise of Timmy H on the keys. This album, I was revisiting some Tim Hecker and revisiting this kind of era, and my favorite Tim Hecker profile. If you're ever looking to read more about Tim Hecker, the best one by far is there's a Spin profile from 2013 around the release of Virgins, which is his real critical breakthrough. That's the one that gets Anthony Fantano's best album of the year in 2013. That's like a very beloved record for good reason. But I believe it's, who does this profile? Christopher Weingarten does the profile for Spin, where he goes to the like church kind of studio with Tim Hecker to basically see the process of making this album. And it is one of my favorite profiles just because of every description of Tim Hecker's process. Like, just to give you a gist of this guy and who he is, I'm going to read real quickly this quote from Carolus Cloverdale, who is an ambient musician herself, who put out an incredible album, Graphs, recently. But she's like she was one of the main keyboard players on Virgins. And this is what she said about his process. He was very much in control, says Cloverdale. He was the designator. He'd sit behind the piano and play me a loop. And I'd have to keep looking over to him, and he'd be standing up and doing shit with his hands like a crazy overlord. I'd have my headphones on, and he would look over and all of a sudden look super mad and be like, no, and say these weird words that I'd have to interpret, like complex nebula or German dictator, or pretend like someone's slapping a ruler over your hands. We'd often think of Tim's sound desk as this transfiguration chamber, she continues. Sound goes in, and then as soon as it's there, it's gone. Then you're jamming with yourself, but it's already not yourself. As soon as you hear it back, it's Timified. It's fucked. You can't be married to the idea that you're going to hear yourself on the record. And basically talking to all these musicians like, yeah, I played on Virgins, and I'm somewhere on there, I guess. I don't know. Like, it just all goes into this black box that is Tim's kind of bare bones recording little studio that is just his monitors and his like music production software. And basically he's just like, yeah, let me take whatever sounds go into my chamber and distort them, stretch them, like destroy them with distortion and decay. And like, he just makes these beautiful, messy, abstract paintings of music that I and Dill are very obsessed with. Tim Hecker has become one of my like favorite guys, and really one of the, maybe the artist most important for me getting into ambient music as a genre that I like write about and care about. And so this album obviously is like the kind of big moment for him. It's the one that gets him a lot of critical acclaim. He has some really, really great albums before 2010, like Harmony and Ultraviolet and Haunt Me, Haunt Me, Haunt Me, Do It Again, and Radio Amore are all like fantastic records, but this is the one where he becomes more than just this niche genre guy, and he becomes kind of the poster child for ambient music taking up a bigger space in the cultural zeitgeist. And Matty's pulled up the best picture of Tim Hecker, which is him standing in front of a bunch of keys, looking very mischievous. He's a little stinker. That's the thing, is that like the profile really gets across that like he makes this music that is so dour and so like serious, and like Virgins is an album that is very much like this hyper political ambient album about like the death of Western civilization, essentially. But he's not like this super self-serious arch guy that you would imagine him.
He's
to
a little
be.
Shit boy.
He is a little shit boy, exactly. Like
we need the photo
he's
of him
Danny
in, like,
Lopatin-esque
priest
in
robes.
his kind of little stinkerness. Yeah, find the priest robes picture. That's the other really fun.
It's in the Discord, yeah.
Is it the one where he's in like the little red outfit?
Yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever?
He's in like a Pope robe, and he's just hanging out. Even with Kanoyo, he had to I don't know if he flew to Japan or he brought this like traditional Japanese orchestra into his studio.
He brought them. He like met them while he was in Japan, I believe, and basically was like, "I want you all to come to my studio." And they some of them toured with him. Like he basically created an ensemble of musicians that played this very traditional style of like Japanese chamber music, essentially, and he incorporated it into his stuff. He's a real weirdo. He's a real one.
He's a real one. Yeah. No, Virgins, because in 2013 was like the year that I like actually seriously got into music.
Yeah, there it is. Beautiful, beautiful picture.
But in 2013 it was Virgins, it was R+7 by One Tricks Point Never, and then it was Tomorrow's Harvest by Woods of Canada. And like those three kind of formed the crux of like where my musical tastes would like be founded upon and eventually grow out into. And Rave Death has always been for me like the quintessential rainy day album. It's so dreary, it's so just comforting in a way and intimate that I don't know if anyone has ever kind of like surpassed it within like the last like decade or so. I think it's still like the pivotal ambient record of the 2010s. Yeah,
Virgins is my favorite Tim Hecker album, but I also don't think of Virgins quite in the same like you're saying an ambient album. Like Virgins is ambient, I guess, in some ways, but it's much more kind of neoclassical. It's a lot more
more experimental. It's a lot more playing with chamber and everything.
Exactly.
Like that.
Yeah, like Rave Death is much more kind of, you still can kind of imagine it being used as sort of like chill, like headspace music in the way that a lot of ambient music is, but it's also so drony and so, like you're saying, moody. Like the great context that Lily shared with us today that I absolutely have to share is that Lily was talking about this up in Alberta in Banff. There's like this Canadian government. The way she was explaining it basically is it's like this place that people can go that's like set up for the arts in Canada, where it's like you can go up to this like little woodsy retreat area and go work on music, and they have all of these like full music studios, but the studio that Tim Hecker got set up in was this little like windowed room, so it's got this big wall of windows on like it behind the computer desk and the sides of it, way up in the mountains of Canada. And he recorded this album there in the middle of winter with like just a thick sheet of fog surrounding like all sides of the windows. So just like imagine him in the most stereotypical place you could imagine someone making a cold ambient album, and then put Tim Hecker there. Like that's the actual environment that he created this in. And it just really, you're right. Like there just is nothing else that has the same kind of haunted moodiness to it, like so perfectly captured in one album.
It's really the zenith of like the decade.
What's our time looking at right now, by the way?
I'm at like 10 minutes right now.
Okay. We went quickly there, but we should circle back at some point.
No, but Rave Death is really the zenith of like the decade preceding of what his work had been, because
totally,
it's taking all of these elements that he'd been working with on like Haunt Me and Radio Amore, Mirages, just loops and feedback, and I think he does some like field recording and some other kind of collage work as well on this. And like up to this point, I think the only kind of main loop musician that had gotten any kind of acclaim was Basinski at this point. And Basinski even was starting to like pivot away from some tape music into more just like kind of like typical ambient, synthesizer, kind of stuff.
Totally.
And I don't know what the history of Pitchfork is regarding ambient up to this point.
I'm going to look real quickly and see what other Tim Hecker stuff they've reviewed, but I think you're totally right about this album being kind of a culmination of the decade. Especially Haunt Me is the one that I think about the most as being paired with this one, partly because this is the album where he returns to the structure of Haunt Me, which is all of these multi-part songs. Like almost all of the songs on Haunt Me are like part 1, part 2, part 3 of various kind of movements that are sort of connected, and that's sort of the structure. He does it a little on Harmony and Ultraviolet too.
I think Harmony may have gotten Best New Music, but it could be wrong.
Yes, I can look that up. Yes, Harmony and Ultraviolet was his first Best New Music. His first review was Mirages in 2004. So they were on the whole time. Like they reviewed Radio Amore, they reviewed An Imaginary Country, which I think Imaginary Country is my pick for underrated Tim Hecker album. I think that one gets glossed over because it's right in between Harmony and Rave Death, which are both more critically acclaimed. And I think Imaginary Country is also really fucking good.
Yeah. And when did he do the Lopatin? Like
that's between Rave Death and Virgins. He drops the instrumental Tourist with Daniel Lopatin, which is also fantastic.
It's like this pure I think it's all improv, if I remember correctly.
That makes me mad. God damn it. I hate Daniel Lopatin and Tim Hecker for being just like savants at this weird studio stuff that I care about.
But no. We should wrap it up here, but to put a nice little bow on it.
Gavin
set another timer.
Yeah, Gavin is just stewing right now.
If Gavin knew where we were recording, like would just bust down a door and like demand that we talk about Chubby Checker right this instant. But yeah, Tim Hecker. If you're not familiar with the ambient music stylings of Tim Hecker, Rave Death is probably one of the best jumping in points. Like it is more
There's
accessible.
Like 4 or 5 jumping in points that you could do for him. Like you could do Radio Amore or Haunt Me. You could do Harmony. You could do Virgins. You could do Rave Death.
Yeah, Virgins was my entry point. I unfortunately am one of the many people that saw the Anthony Fantana review and was like, let me fire this up, and was not prepared for like Live Room Out or Incense at Abu Ghraib or any of the stuff I was about to hear. But it cracked my brain open like an egg and is very responsible for a lot of the stuff that I'm into now. So shout out to Tim Hecker, you crazy ass Canadian.
Shout out to me, X. Is he brought up later in the series?
Probably.
I have to imagine that we probably didn't. I don't think he got. So he's gotten Best New Album 2 more times. I'm gonna look at tracks. He gets a Best New Track for Castrati Stack. I don't know if we talk about it.
I think we maybe put it on there. I don't know.
We'll see. I don't think so. I think we just picked the piano drop because he's only gotten Best New Track, which is. I mean, it's understandable. Like, he isn't really a tracks artist, even though there are a couple, like, they didn't review Grey Geisha, but Grey Geisha from Instrumental Taurus is, like, a perfect, like, standalone track as far as standalone Tim Hecker goes. And there are a couple other remixes and things that they've reviewed, but for the most part, he's an albums artist. Like, you have to take a whole album in from him to really get the gist of it. And he's gotten 4 Best New Music so far in his career.
Yeah, Castrati Shack and Love Streams is like basically his pop album. Like he went to 4AD for that one record and it leaked like 5 months in advance. And
oh my god!
Yeah, okay, you're done. Goodbye.
We've been talking about
this. 4AD tangent right now.
4AD is where promising buzz critically acclaimed acts go to die.
No, if you guys actually do choose Castrati Shack, I'll probably pop in for that episode as well. But
hell yeah,
because there's so much to talk about.
I wasn't a Love Streams girl at first, but it has grown on me. It's still not one of my favorite Tim Hecker albums, but I do appreciate it way more than I used to.
Matty, do you still go to bat for Love Streams, or am I?
I do go to bat for Love Streams. I was gonna say, yeah, Love Streams is still my favorite Tim Hecker record. Although Rave Death, the more that I listen to Rave Death, the more that like it creeps up on the list a little bit. Like this track is incredible. Like I don't know how to talk about ambient music, but it just makes me feel things that are indescribable. Great track. But let's move on to our next song. Rose, what is up next?
I'm gonna set a timer because you know what? I'm gonna go.
Sorry,
off
Gavin.
I promise this will be shorter than those two's time. Like, that is my promise. I will try to cut it in half. That is how. Okay. So the next guy we were talking about today is a perennial one of my guys. It is Panda Bear from Animal Collective. He's the lesser of the two like main songwriters I want to get into in the band. And so the thing you need to understand is like each of the two guys, there's Avi Terror and Panda Bear, they have 2 modes. So Panda Bear, like his whole thing is doing like, you know, he'll take a central phrase or set of phrases and like repeat it over and over into this way until it sort of like builds upon itself, which is the main mode for like pretty much everything from the critical like opuses of like 2007 to 2011, pretty much, even as far as like Panda Bear meets the Grim Reaper, which is also pretty good, but a little more like dicey in places. So I sent the Wikipedia page I just did because like I feel like his list of influences is a good place to zero in on like what he's doing. And he, for the liner notes of Person Pitch, he listed like 50 different musicians that he just finds as like inspirations to things. And I think the main ones to zero in on are like King Tubby, Madlib, and Can. Like those are the 3 that I find like very obvious in this thing, because like again I talk about that work of repetition like that you know, that cements his places. Like he can just find this way to kind of drill an idea into you over and over until suddenly it seems like just something brilliant, which is the way it drills in. And I think this song in particular is like one of his best, if not maybe my favorite, I don't know, of his like solo works. Person Pitch was like all, you know, everyone loves to talk about the myth of like, oh, you did it all on an SP303 just at home, you know, with a box of scraps. Like, But like literally, it was just him just messing around with that, and so he just decided for Tomboy, which is the record we were talking about today. Like he just decided, okay, none of that. I'm just gonna do a guitar run through a Korg M3M workstation, which is like just a crazy thing. Just he, used a synthesizer unit with a guitar, and then just like kind of went off with that. And made some weird, like, spacey, like, post-chill wave. Like, I wouldn't quite call it, like, chill wave.
Feel chill.
Well, Person Pitch is, like, the originator of chill wave, in a sense. Like, it's one of the, like, forebears of everything we talk about for a reason. And this one is, like, way more, like, spacey. Like, he's leaning into the psych stuff. He's, hanging out with Sonic Boom from Spaceman 3. Mm-hmm. Anyway, yeah, this is just it's very pleasant. I find the song very fun, and I think it's one of the best executions of his whole like just saying some stuff over and over and over until it really hits.
Mm-hmm. Loved reading like a really old Chris Ott AMA from like 6 or 7 years ago, and he talked about how they almost gave Person Pitch an 11. And that almost made him leave.
Really? That is insane.
Yeah,
that is really funny.
It's so funny that like there was a period, between Person Pitch and like I'd argue right around Meets the Grim Reaper that like everyone was just like Panda Bear is like the guy. Like like even though he was literally in a band with like another just incredible songwriter, everyone was like, this is the guy. This is the guy. Like, it has to be. I mean, he wrote My Girls. Like, why wouldn't it be the guy? Like, look at that. Like, 4 in a row. He just, like, for, a solid decade or so, he was just running the tables. It's even crazier if you go to, like, the Animal Collective page and just look at that. Like, go there and just see the, like, run they were on when you get the chance.
Yeah. I'm deciding when I should pop in here.
Yeah, I'll let you go first, Jackie. I'll let you go first.
Okay.
Also play the song while we're
well. See,
first play the song. Sorry,
this.
everybody.
So I'm famously like probably the least Animal Collective versed person of this entire podcast. I feel like Animal Collective was like a core kind of thing that people in the podcast talked about before I got here. And then eventually when I joined the podcast in like 2017, I want to say is when I joined, something like that. I was just sort of like, I these people are really into Animal Collective, whatever. It was never something that I had really connected with. And a couple times since then I've tried and like haven't really ever gotten into more than like 1 or 2 songs basically. And so for this episode, I was like, okay, we've got to talk about Panda Bear. We've got to talk about Run of Roses guys. I've never listened to solo Panda Bear. I'm gonna give this a shot. This is the worst song we've listened to any playlist yet. This is a time prism. Every second that this song is on, it is actively like my fight or flight instinct activates basically as soon as the melody kicks in. Like the drum with the echo is kind of like, all right, let's see, where's he going with this? And the moment the melody kicks in, I'm just like, I literally want to run away, Rose. I'm sorry. Like, it's just not.
I kind of agree with Jack. I kind of agree with Jackie here. I've never been the biggest Panda head.
He's not my main guy either.
Chance. That's the thing is, I went in with an open mind and was like, I'd be ready to understand for the first time and be able to like have this dialogue with you, and I couldn't do it, Rose. I'm sorry.
Listen, push comes to shove, he's not my guy at the end of the day. Like, he's made some garbage. He's made some just absolute
But you
garbage.
said this is one of the best Panda Bear songs. You like hyped this song up.
Yes, this is one of his best, but I'm not talking. I'm saying at the end of the day, like, of the 2 guys within the band, like, he's not my guy as much.
I get that. You're
but
like
this right here is
They Might Be Giants
him for me.
Whether you're
he is the one who I think has made some of the highest highs, but also some of the worst garbage I've ever heard.
Rose, do you think that They Might Be Giants guys can be mapped on similarly to like the 2 Animal Collective guys, where it's like
yes,
you're
I would argue in a similar way. Like Panda Bear is kind of the Linnell because he makes like much more straightforward pop songs that like everybody loves to an extent, and like AB's always the one who makes like just intentionally very weird stuff. Like, he's the one who will give you like 7-minute songs that just, kind of go places.
But yeah, the pop element of this song, like the part, I guess I can get like the kind of interesting like production elements of it, and how like you're talking about like everyone loved to marvel at like what he was able to do with such simple like techniques and stuff, whatever. But I just the actual songwriting, like the actual like the melodies that and like you're saying, like just repeating the same thing over, like it wasn't working for me right away. So then when you're building an entire song off of this melody that like isn't working for me, it feels really time prison-y. It feels like the song just goes totally on get that forever. Mentality.
And like what you were saying a minute ago is something that I was talking with Lily about earlier, where like she was talking about Hounds of Love and just like, you know, like the idea of like home studio musicianship really becoming prevalent in the late 2000s in that way. And like Animal Collective were kind of, you know, the model project of that, of just like a bunch of guys just working around together in like small studios with like just an SP303 and a guitar, and that's all they needed. You know, and like it's kind of interesting just to look at like this guy try to condense like 100 influences, you know, like that giant list I said that has like Moody Man and then also like Black Sabbath in there, just, you know.
I don't
like
hear any
50...
Moody Man or Madlib in any of the Panda Bear stuff. That I'm not getting a funky good time out of any of this. I'm sorry.
It's the sampler work rather than like the actual like
I get what you mean.
Output
just like
of it. Like
the techniques more than
his way around this technology.
Yeah.
Look, folks. She last night on my Jetty until I'm a tomboy. Anyways, yeah, this.
Well, congratulations on your transition.
Sorry, Rose. I don't really care for this track. Again, there's been songs I like.
I don't care that much. I'm not.
It's like, just this is not. Again, like weirdly enough, I like more like weirdly enough, Grim Reaper and some of the stuff on Boys is more about. Here's the thing, Boys is a land of contrast.
Boys
there is
so bad.
There is some of the worst Panda Bear songs ever, but there's also some of the best. It's a toss up.
The title track is like incredible. Like I listen to that, I'm just like, why isn't it more of this?
Mm-hmm.
But like some of that record is just embarrassing. Like I can't believe
we can't even get into it. Rusty, did you have anything to say about Last Night at the Jetty?
No, I really don't. Like I remember Tomboy being hyped up forever and ever before it came out, and I was just like, I don't care anymore. I never was into like Animal Collective to begin with. Like, sure, I was on the hype train when Merryweather came out. It was cool. Whatever. I love Person Pitch. Bros is amazing. Everything else, whatever. Mm-hmm. That's my 2 cents on Mr. Bear.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I've launched into a dang ass freak rant about
anybody set a timer for that one.
I will say like 3 minutes on the main part of it.
I do not mind time skips. I have listened to time skips, and it is not like it's not on my album of the year list or anything. It's still very not for me. But
it's dad rock. Like that's the thing. They're dad rock.
I will confirm that Prester John is breaking it down. I cannot deny that Prester John is breaking
that song's
it
fine.
Oh Jesus! This next one.
Okay, yeah, we do. Okay,
I'm trapped again.
Rose, if you can I introduce this next one?
This is the worst timer one of the episode.
Yep, this is
put on a leash
right now. Everybody.
All right, set the clock, everybody. Actually, let me pull up my timer myself.
I literally all I have to say about this is like this is a really nice song. This next one, and like I know what's coming. Like I know
a really nice song. That's how you describe it. Really nice.
I don't mean in tenor or like tone. I just mean like it's a nice song. Like I really like it.
All right, our next song is Tyler the Creator's Yonkers, his breakthrough hit. I guess hit. Yeah, I would say it's a hit.
Yeah,
like, not in the traditional sense.
He went on like national television to perform it, didn't he?
This is correct. Yeah. He went on Jimmy Fallon to perform this.
Yeah. Okay. I was thinking
late
of Jimmy
show
Fallon
era, not Tonight
wasn't
Show.
Sure if it was this song.
Yeah, this was So we had Late Show. So I'm going to read the review from Zach Kelly on Pitchfork, and I guess I will start playing the snippet while I try to read this. It's easy to see why people might be skeptical of bizarre rap faction Odd Future Wolfgang Kill Them All. From a distance, it can seem like the collective's sole purpose is to draw ire in a variety of stomach-souring ways, so it's hard to know just how much we're being fucked with and why. Of course, that's a large part of their appeal too, the unpredictable hormonality. Thank you. Charged energy that comes from the feelings of disenfranchisement of being a teenager. But listen closer, and it's becoming clear that these LA brats are making some of the most compelling, daring hip-hop in recent memory, and no one among them is doing it better than ringleader Tyler, the Creator, who proved himself here with Yonkers, the first single of his sophomore bid, Goblin. Yonkers is not only the best thing that any OF affiliate has produced to date, it's also the perfect distillation of what they do well. The beat, produced by Tyler, works uncomfortably, sounding like someone falling or failing to dead start an engine, and it's a perfectly grim platform for Tyler's words. He appears here as funny, irreverent, and frightening as we've seen him. For a song that pops with this much macabre color, an accompanying visual might seem like overkill, but the video for Yonkers provides essential insight. Beyond the blood, bugs, and that grand finale, at the heart of the clip is Tyler's remarkable performance. One so convincingly maddened that the shock tactics barely register, and all that is left is the face of a twisted, wildly clever child of the digital age.
You know, I was more of a bastard guy. The record before.
I was about to say that's shocking to me because the specific thing I was gonna say is that when I first went back to this old Tyler the Creator music to kind of refresh myself, like Bastard is the stuff that doesn't hold. Like the Goblin stuff surprisingly holds up way better than the Bastard stuff does, just musically, not in terms of like how tasteful it is. I just feel like this song in particular is the moment where he hones like what the kind of stuff that he's going for. Like it's like I think production wise, the clear inspiration for Tyler always, and the person he cites all the time is Pharrell, but like specifically Clips era, like Hell Hath No Fury is one of Tyler the Creator's favorite rap albums of all time, and you can really tell on the song Yonkers because that like car alarm kind of sound that runs throughout it is very similar to the song on Hell Hath No Fury. I'm forgetting which one, but it's the one that has the hi-hat that comes on at the beginning of the song that sounds like someone's trying to light a stove. Is it like the sound of the hi-hat, the click 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 sounds like someone trying to light a stove to crack cocaine on. And that's essentially the vibe that the Yonkers beat has, I think, incredibly well. It's like this just really, I mean, the Yonkers beat comes on and immediately I'm just like taken back to being an angsty teenager again, like instantaneously.
Yonkers is a great song. I do like it, but I just remember, you know, it's kind of funny comparing him to Panda Bear. You know, I remember the one song from Bastard being Tina, you know, it's just the whole time Tina from your fucking weed over and over and over. God.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Rusty, I just want to say I am genuinely shocked that you have opinions on this because I was going this one being like, oh god, yeah, Rusty's going to be completely shut out of this discussion.
You gotta remember,
but
I was working at Urban Outfitters at this point, and all the kids were into this, and I was just like, okay.
Were you selling the donut socks, like the Odd Future donut socks?
I can't remember if they were being sold at that point. I can't remember.
Yeah, because
they sell donut socks that don't say Odd Future on them, but they have like the you know, they might as well be copyright.
The donut socks come around at the time of the Odd Future tape that has the donut cover. Like that's when it becomes like that's when Odd Future has become its own like fiefdom of California. Like, but yeah, I definitely like. There are some of those tracks from Bastard, like Ass Milk and stuff like that, that is still like you definitely see like why there was the kind of hype around that, especially because he was just such a like clear raw like talent. But I think it's, for me at least, the first stuff that starts to feel like it holds up well enough to be worth revisiting is Goblin. And even still, Goblin is a very mixed bag, both in terms of like what stuff has held up well as like kind of being provocative in a fun way versus the stuff that just feels really try-hardy right now. Like not even getting into like whether he should have been saying gay slurs, which obviously a little more complicated now that he's like more or less come out of the closet. But like, I think that, this song is the thing that is still the most undeniable about Goblin. Like the performance that he gives on it vocally, the performance that he gives in the music video, which the review brings up, and I think is just crucial to like, you can't talk about this song without talking about the music video. But the thing that impressed me about the music video more than
the Creator ate what?
More than the roach eating. That's the thing, is like, you remember the roach. That's what everyone remembers. It's the obvious hook. It's like the he did what. But the actual music video itself is really cinematically compelling. Like for a music
it's a great video.
For a video that costs $3, that's just him in front of a white backdrop and a camera, and they've made it black and white, and he zooms out at one point and zooms back in. Like, it's really not a complicated setup, but it's so visually compelling. Like when the camera zooms out and he's throwing up and he's like a silhouette and then it zooms back in right into his face, like it's just so compelling to watch, and you're just like, okay, I need to know who this guy is, I need to know everything about him, I need to watch every YouTube video of him hanging out with his friends in Ladera. Like, you understand, this launched an entire generation of people just becoming obsessed with this guy and this group of people, and it's understandable why. Like, I totally see this all these years later, and not any part of me is like cringing at like, why I don't know how I got into this. It's like, of course I got into this. Like,
it's such whiplash, like watching this video now, and now that we're like firmly in the like soft boy Tyler era.
Totally. I mean, like, everyone makes the joke every couple of years about Gen Z kids discovering old Tyler the Creator and going, what? What did this guy used to say? Like,
he
does happen.
He gets a retroactive F slur pass.
Yeah, we all come from somewhere. We all come from somewhere, and now he has his Grammy.
It
two
is,
Grammys.
yeah.
He's got two Grammys now.
Too. Yeah, I forgot.
You won the Grammy this year.
Yeah, honestly, the sexual assault stuff on the early Tyler stuff is the stuff that honestly holds up worse than the him saying the F slur stuff. Like, that is more, feels like a product of its time, whereas the like all the rape lines all feel much more like Eminem-y in how they're trying to provoke your ire.
Well, yeah, it's like it literally like the core of this group is like being a bunch of shithead teenagers.
I mean, and the line, I'm a stab Bruno Mars in his goddamn esophagus, that is so Eminem. That is so like Eminem, like, I'm gonna sit next to, in between two people, like, that's exactly what he's pulling that from. But it works, really. I mean, Bruno Mars was the right target to hit with that line in 2011. Like, he's very smart in how he positions himself right from the beginning, I think, even though some of the stuff is very clearly like juvenile.
Also, the black contact lens is just like very disturbing. Like, even now, it's just like, it's just, it's,
that's the thing,
again,
like, every single dollar that was spent on this music video, like however much money it cost to get, like, buy the roach from a pet store,
it probably
like, every
cost
dollar
more
they
than
spent,
you think. It really did. There's a couple $1,000s lapped up in this thing.
Yeah, no, this is definitely a more expensive video than you think.
And was very mad.
But like every dollar was like worth it, like times 10. That's the thing, is that like every single thing that they sprung for this video like was so worth it. Like just the black contacts, whatever, like makes such a big difference. There are a couple of really great lines from the song.
Yeah, like this video is mostly just kind of vamping, but like it's really good vamping.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I mean, that's what the old, like, that's kind of what they're best. Like, even though Tyler is a really talented director, and as he gets more and more resources, is like constantly trying to prove himself as a filmmaker, as along with being a rapper. Like, a lot of the best Odd Future videos and a lot of the best Odd Future content, and like the stuff that made us such rabid fans at the time, was just the videos of them hanging out and skateboarding and making fun of each other, which is why they make such a perfect fit for Jackass. Is that like, it's that very same thing of like watching these people and their friendship and their antics.
Mm-hmm.
So for the record, I set a timer, but in the middle of it, I walked away for a minute and my phone died while the timer went. However, I got a timer going.
We're almost at 10 minutes. We're almost at 10
minutes. 9.5 minutes. Like, it kept going even though my phone died.
The thing with
he also has the stabbing any blogging slur hipster with a pitchfork, so very appropriate for this episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just like immediately calling out the critics, because I think one of the things that in retrospect I think people forget about Tyler is that like he was already still pretty buzzed about in 2010. Like, he didn't just suddenly become I mean, he obviously did, but like there were people that were still pretty aware of Tyler in 2010. You know, like Bastard came out in the end of 2009, and then like slowly throughout the fall, like I would say the fall of 2010 is really where it's like things start to pick up. Where it's like Parade got Best New Track in 2010. You know, they played their first shows. They went to London in 2010. Like things were happening for Odd Future towards the end of the, you know, the end of the year, before, you know, Yonkers came out and just really blew them up, because like fucking Kanye tweeted the video, and you know they're going on, you know, the Late Show with Jimmy Fallon, like him and Haji performing sandwiches, like things were already, it was like they were already on the rise, and then Yonkers comes out and just like like a fucking roller coaster just shoots them up into the fucking stratosphere.
It's literally throwing a cherry bomb into the room, and like just immediately it's like, all right, yeah, this is going supernova.
Cherry
and
bomb.
it just
Yes, that was
and then it just sustains because it's just like, they go on Jimmy Fallon, they do a big tour leading up to Goblin, which Goblin is a very interesting record. It's just like, I don't know how much of it was done before Yonkers came out, but like already on Goblin, he's already like reconciling with the fact of like how he's already like blowing up from this video and from this song. And just sustains where it's like, they go on tour, he wins the fucking best new artist VMA. Which that's how I discovered Tyler, because I was watching the VMAs that year, and that's how I became a fan. Where it's like, I'm trying to remember who else was nominated that year for I think like Creation Gucci was also.
Oh my god! I'm literally at some point I'm gonna write a piece about this, but just 2011 rap music it feels like a different planet now. Even though
I gotta do Gucci at karaoke tonight.
Even though so much of that rap music is like very influential in its own way, it also feels very frozen in time. Like the early internet, like Lil B is taking off, like that kind of era of rap music is just such a specific thing.
Oh yeah, best new artist again. Tyler Creator, Yonkers won. Also nominated was Big Sean, My Last, Big Sean featuring Chris Brown, Foster the People, Pumped Up Kicks, Kreayshawn, Gucci, and Wiz Khalifa, Black and Yellow. So like the fact that he beat, like I said, it's crazy because like you would say like for a couple of years after, it's like, oh, they should have gone with like Big Sean or Wiz Khalifa. Like Tyler was big, but he wasn't like he wasn't to the levels as big as he is now, where it's like Big Sean is like kind of fallen off the radar. Wiz is doing his thing. He had the album with Girl Talk this year, and I think he's doing some acting stuff. But like
Wiz
Tyler has surprisingly been
Wiz stopped trying to be like a kind of current, like of the moment rapper the way that Tyler is.
He's just gonna live off "See You Again" royalties for the rest of his life.
Exactly. Like Wiz Khalifa, in the weirdest way possible, is a legacy artist now. Like Wiz Khalifa is essentially like the Eagles, but for people that smoke too much weed and listen to Kush and OJ a lot in 2012. Like that's what. Whereas Tyler the Creator is still very much someone that like he puts out "Call Me If You Get Lost," and people. I mean, that "Call Me If You Get Lost" is the closest he's come to making kind of Yonkers-y music in a really long time. Like it's very aggressive and rap oriented and bass heavy in the beats in a way that he hasn't really seemingly wanted to be in a while. And I think it suits him really well on that record. I think that album rocks. I'm more positive on you. I know we don't need to get into that.
I will only briefly touch on it, but like I feel like just Tyler the Creator has just not been like very compelling to me since Cherry Bomb, and even Cherry Bomb was already like the wheels are already falling off on that record, because Cherry Bomb is a concept record about being in love with a teenager.
That is true.
It's not great. He's like, oh, well, he's like 24, 25. Still not great to write a concept record about being in love with like a 17-year-old. Like it's not great. And also Tyler, again, there's just so many things with Tyler where it's like, I still think like this period, I would still say like one of our most compelling figures in hip hop, but the music itself just hasn't really, I just haven't connected with the music in the past couple of years. Like even Igor, everyone freaked out about Igor. I just didn't really, that record didn't grab me outside of like New Magic Wand. And, like,
Call Me If You Get Lost to Igor and Flower Boy. I think Igor and Flower Boy are both really good, and I think it's the most successful he's ever managed to do.
Oh yeah, no, it's a case where it's just like I'm in the complete minority there.
He breaks out with this style of just really abrasive, really heavy rap music, and then immediately is like, but actually what I want to do is be Stevie Wonder. And everyone immediately is like, no, you can't be Stevie Wonder. You're not like good at this. But like,
you cannot write songs in the key of life. You can't even write Fulfilling This First Finale, buddy. You're not there.
When he finally gets to Igor, he does get to a point where he's doing that kind of soul pop disco stuff and it doesn't feel like it's a shirt that doesn't fit him. Like he eventually gets to a point where he's really convincingly doing all of this stuff, whereas a lot of the early Tyler beats, like you can literally listen to him learn how to produce in these early tracks, which is kind of why it is so miraculous that Yonkers just holds up as well as it does. Because like some of the beats from early Odd Future, particularly some of Left Brain stuff, just like has not aged gracefully. is what I will
definitely,
say.
again, a lot of early Odd Future has just not aged gracefully.
I mean,
like I know you were saying earlier
I used
that
to listen
Goblin
to Mel Hype all the time, which is the
Jesus Christ.
which is
Remember
the
Haji Beats?
Haji Beats Left Brain
Haji
project.
Beats, Left Brain,
I feel like I should share my
Taco,
opinions on
Mike
Odd
G.
Future, which is
Dolphin.
I don't really like any of them except Mike G. I think Mike G. Is
Mike G.
I liked
Oh
Mike
my
G.
God,
That's
everyone-
the thing. I was one of those people that would listen to Forrest Green and talk myself into Mike G having a career.
Jesus Christ. So many guys, Dr. TC, Wolf Haley, just so many guys.
Sid the
Like
Kid.
there's just
Matt
again
Martians, yeah,
Matt Martians.
all the kind of affiliated people that are around the outside. There's just a lot of guys, and really, like very quickly it became clear that there were three guys.
I feel like I haven't even talked about this. So, can I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
This is going to be so long. I'm so sorry, listeners.
We will talk about the other guys in a future date.
Yeah, we barely touched on the song.
Yes.
Of course, what blew me away, obviously, in 2011, me being, 2011, so I was like 14. I'm like, the first verse is like, he's like, I'm a fucking walking paradox. No, I'm not. And like every line is like a contradiction where it's like, oh, Anwar's synthetic dreadlocks. Oh, Sid the Kid, who's a lesbian. Oh, she's getting intimate with men. Like, oh, like this, just crazy.
It is very fake deep high schoolery in the way that a lot of Goblin, like all the therapy stuff on Goblin, all of that kind of stuff. Really, for whatever reason,
I will say,
angsty teenagers, it was just catnip for us. Like,
I will say, if it ever happens, because I feel like the nostalgia circuit will come around, and at some point, Tyler will bring back like Dr. TC on an album. Like, will happen. It will happen, and I will pop. Like, I will go
Taco.
crazy.
Oh my God.
Taco's
just an influencer now, basically.
Yeah, he's on a Little Dicky show. He's still. I think he's still. I want to say he's still Tyler's DJ at his live shows.
I believe so. Yes.
And Jasper's still Tyler's hype man, obviously, along with being a movie star now.
Big time movie star.
Big time movie. God,
I mean, he's not as big as Dark Shark. We can say that much.
God. I mean, obviously, I was watching Loiter Squad too. Like, I was very invested in the Odd Future cycle for way too long.
We've said it many times before on this podcast. It really holds up as a.
I'm getting lightheaded as I'm talking.
A very funny sketch show.
Yeah, Tyler Yonkers. Let's see. Where's my timer at?
18 minutes, 30 seconds.
Yeah, let's just call it there. Great song.
We're gonna talk about Odd Future. We're gonna talk about Odd Future again in the future. No pun intended.
Yeah, there will be more discussion. But our next song, Rose. What is our next song?
Before this next song, before I get into talking about this next song, I just want to say J-Tune Yard. It's very important that we get that in.
Should we do a land acknowledgement before we get into this next song?
Oh my God! This is a very special.
This discussion is so cursed. Like, there's no way to talk seriously about Tune Yards in the year 2022 because, like, you just think about like how cursed this band's entire conception is. Like, when we were talking about them weeks ago, Rihanna came in the chat and was like, "Wait, Tune Yards are whites?" Like, just actively going like, "Huh?" Like, because people don't realize this. Like, this is a band fronted by a white woman named Meryl Garbus, and like, it's just the more you listen to this band and the more you learn about them, like, and it just becomes all the more baffling that critics were like, this was like critical catnip in this year. That, like, if I remember correctly, it's either this one or the next one got number one on the Paz and Jop poll.
This is
correct.
Was
this one.
Yeah,
it was Who Killed.
It's just insane. Like, this record was just.
I think this is just, and I mean, Matty, I don't mean to presume, this is the Obama-ass song of the week, right?
Yeah. I will say this week, it was actually like, I really was debating on whether or not to give out the most Obama-ass song of the week award. I was like, do any songs here, like,
there's
really
two here, I think, qualify. There's two.
Yeah, I think going to what you're getting at about Rihanna hilariously discovering that Tune Yards were white, like, it's simultaneously like the last era you could get away with something like this, but it's also like they were smart enough to know not to put her on, like the Bizness video does not feature the members of the band. And
no,
it
I
does.
think Meryl's
It
in
does.
shot.
Oh, she is? Oh,
yeah,
well,
I think it does.
Yeah, I think she's one of the
Yeah.
adult, like the adult, like dancing
gotcha.
group.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
she's
that
like the
makes-
lead dancer.
Even still, like I felt like they were always like, it was never like being put on Front Street. Like how, like what was? I think it's a common experience to not know. Is all I'm saying.
Well,
Yeah,
like, people love to
of
be
course,
named
and like
Meryl Jarvis.
this gets to something. I want to launch a nuclear take into the sphere.
Yeah, let's listen to a little bit of Bizness
Yeah,
and then share our
sorry.
thoughts on it.
I'm just think Dylan's land acknowledgement comment just threw me for a fucking loop.
So I would like to posit a nuclear take out there, which is this is the millennial gentrifier version of Talking Heads' E Zimbra.
Oh, fuck off. God damn it.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong, I don't think.
It reminds me so much of it. Like I listen to it, I'm just like, E Zimbra, buddy.
Okay, putting in the context of Talking Heads makes me a little more sympathetic to what I was about to be very mean to, because I love Talking Heads, and I admit that it's hypocritical for me to be like, what is this?
Yeah,
silly,
same. Like
what is this silly bullshit there? But then let me turn around and let me love when David Byrne does it. But
you
like,
literally took them out on the American Utopia tour.
I think the difference is that I find the affectations of the vocals on this song a lot more like raise eyebrow, like, because I mean David Byrne has been someone that, even though he's been kind of a big poster boy of like quote unquote appropriating world music in Western music, he's also been one of the strongest proponents of why world music is an incredibly dumb and like a Western centric term that just like is inherently racist, to be like, there's Western music and then there's world, the rest of it, and just that's
like
one
also
genre,
not to
that's
mention
all of it. Like,
not
it's
to
very
mention he's
silly.
been a huge proponent of bringing those artists to the forefront, like on their own terms. Like he was one of the guys who was really pushing William Oniabor back to like mainstream understanding, and popularity.
Exactly, yeah. And when David Byrne like incorporates those elements into his music, it feels a little less costumey as it does with Tune Yards. Like the way that they're doing these vocal like inflections, like it just feels really fucking silly.
Yeah, like it's like a band of two white people rather than Talking Heads, which was like a group of like there was at the core it was like a group of white kids playing up there who were like going to art college, but then also like live they would bring in like actual like black musicians to join them,
Exactly,
who understood what they were doing.
No, totally.
I don't even think the song is like that
hipster.
bad.
It's
bad.
fine. Like that's the thing is like E Zimbra, I like the song. I just think it is a lot more like
You can't possibly say, "Oh, I like Tune Yards," because they're just so performative and so just like over the top with it that it just becomes annoying.
Yeah, the very second thing that Rihanna did after posting the "What Tune Yards Are White" thing is that Rihanna put on the song "Colonizer" from their 2018 album and was like, "I'm sorry, what the fuck is this?" Like,
yeah, Meryl Jarvis made a whole album about white guilt. Is like she did the "Sorry to Bother You" soundtrack and then just turned around and went, "Okay, I'm gonna make this now."
Yeah, I always forget the "Sorry to Bother You" soundtrack. That's such a wild thing.
Yeah, like just what a weird career pivot.
We cannot bring up Boots again. We brought up Boots up randomly in the fucking Eurovision episode. I don't understand how.
I forgot about that.
We did bring up Boots in the Eurovision episode. I don't know how.
I assume it had something to do with Twinks, Matty. I haven't even listened to the episode yet.
No, wait, you're talking about Boots. We're talking about Boots Riley.
Oh, okay, different Boots. Okay,
Riley,
okay. Well, my bad.
Do you think Boots listened to the White Guilt album and was like, "I need them on the Sorry to Bother You" sound?
That is really...
This is again the most Obama-ass song of the week.
It's
Boots,
so NPR.
Not Boots. Sorry, Tune Yards is just like
his Paz and Job, baby.
Just makes me want to go buy an Apple product, specifically an
the
iPad.
fucking the video for this is just like so like it is just what a 2011 artifact.
Insufferably twee.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. The
thing is, the song is not even that bad. It's an alright song.
Is cranked up so high.
I just
like trying to manipulate my emotions by getting like a classroom full of children dancing out. It's just like, no, stop that, stop.
Look,
I'm not following this crap.
To quote Barely March in our Discord, which is a sentiment that I have also said at some point, but I can't find the quote for. Look, sometimes cultural appropriation just hits. Like,
exactly.
this is
next.
And this is a song where it's like, look, it just hits a little bit sometimes.
You want to talk about the next song? You really want to talk about that?
According to Wikipedia,
get people away from cultural appropriation. Just trying to just.
Real quickly, I just want to say that Boots Riley says that he started working with Tune Yards in early 2015 to create the film score. So he had not yet heard.
He had not yet heard Colonize.
No, he had not.
I think Nicky Nack got like best new music as well. Like,
Nicky Nack was my introduction to Tune Yards because that was 2014 was the year that I got really into indie music, and obviously when I started
the thing to understand is like Tune Yards are like one of the great critical buyer's regret bands. Like you got like, critics are really in for a few years and then they immediately pulled out. Like there are plenty that we'll talk about later on. Like to a way lesser extent, I think Run the Jewels has kind of gotten that. Like Run the Jewels 2 is
I think Run the Jewels has not. I think like Tune Yards definitely like has suffered a lot of buyer's remorse from critics. Run the Jewels is like I think it's getting there. But RCJ4 got best new music.
Critics are still in on them, but like they're not like this is the rap. These are our guys.
I mean,
like,
Run the Jewels 2 got. I mean, if I remember correctly, like Run the Jewels 2 got like it was their album of the year in 2014, and then the decade list it was like in the 80s or something. It was
I think the
crazy
difference
drop off
with the buyer's remorse is that with a band like Tune Yards, the critical buzz was so much responsible for them that when they started to make cringier music, the journalists are basically like, we have to get out in front of this and make sure people know this isn't our fault. Like essentially, under no circumstances do you have to hand it to the Tune Yards.
It's like Meryl Garbus apologizing for cultural appropriation.
Here's the thing with Tune Yards. If you want to know how far Tune Yards has fallen, the new record, which came out last year, didn't even get reviewed by Pitchfork. Not even a fucking review.
They're still on 4AD, and they can't get a fucking Pitchfork review. That's insane.
It's
Wait, there was a record last year.
You know who I feel even worse
There was
for?
a record last year.
No. The politics of being white in America.
They stuck Anju Mil on an opening slot for Tune Yards in 2022.
Yes, the name of the 2021 Tune Yards album is called Sketchy, which is all lowercase with a period at the end.
Seems sketch to me. Maybe it doesn't exist. I'm not convinced.
It doesn't seem like it convinced. A lot of these songs do not have a lot of plays.
And it was still on
like
4AD.
one good song on there, but
the contract
I think so.
Yeah, it feels like it kind of is like an ending point. Like
4AD release. Yep.
Jeez.
This is the second time we brought 4AD up in this episode, and we just cannot get into it.
I think. Is there another? I think we might be coming back again.
We talked about Tim Hecker, but
no, I don't think so. I don't think there's anything else that's on 4AD. No.
Not as far as I don't think.
Well,
I don't
technically,
think
I mean, XL is part of the Beggars group of a label.
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
That's as close as we're gonna get.
Is 4AD in Beggars group? I don't remember them being.
No, they are. I think the one that I always think that Domino is a part of Beggars group, but they aren't.
Yeah, like it's the label conglomerates confuse me so heavily.
Unfortunately, when you work in radio, you do even working in radio, you understand them a lot more. But even then, there's still a couple where we're like me and Russ are now on the radio side. We're working a record from Domino. I was like, wait a second, we're working when we got that project. I was like, wait a second, I thought I thought Domino was a part of Beggars.
No.
That's why we don't work Domino.
They're their own little entity in the world.
Yeah, and they have a can of worms themselves that we cannot get into on this episode.
Y'all throw some shade towards Domino's way. It's not that bad. Come on,
Did you not see that 482 Fortet is literally suing them?
Okay. I will say no. In terms again, I'm talking about the roster is not that bad, but the internal politics of Domino. Again, there's the Fortet stuff. It's sketchy. We're gonna move on to our next song, which is the worst. Which I think is the worst song that we have discussed so far.
I would like to make a very declarative statement at the top of this, which is fuck California.
Oh, God damn it!
Our next song is EMA's California. Rose, tell us what Pitchfork had to say about it, not just Pitchfork. Tom Brand. Let me pull up
Fuck
the reviews.
California.
Everyone's
You made me
favorite
bored.
number one writer.
That's how you start a song. Erica M. Anderson used to wail out bruised, desperate cons like this as the leader of Gowns, and now she wails them out as herself. As a South Dakota transplant on the West Coast, Anderson knows more than most about displacement, and California is the shattered cry of someone living unmoored, trying to make sense of what's going on in her head. The song never gels into a coherent thought, but how could it? Instead, we get phrases that cut deep. What's it like to be small town and gay? I used to carry the gun. You've corrupted us all with your sexuality. Tried to tell me love was free. She grabs a phrase from Bo Diddley's Who Do You Love? I'm just 22 and I don't mind dying, and repeats it all over and over, twisting it all around. When Diddley sang it, it was a nihilist boast. In Anderson's hands, it's a roar of loss and confusion like everything else on the song. And she delivers all these devastating thoughts in a plain, conversational style that lands hard. There's beauty and chaos in the noise folk arrangement with its feedback drones and lonely violins and muffled faraway drum thuds, but the focus of the song is all on Anderson and what she's trying to tell us. Oh, it's just something to be too painful to be told as anything but poetry. In defense of California, whatever the state's done to her, Anderson is not even the tiniest bit boring. She's magnetic, and her words will stick with you. This song is insane. Like I hang on. What place was it at again? I'm trying to remember.
61.
Like
61 on the 200 best songs of the 2010s. That like just play the snippet and like. People, you have to understand. Like
my simple take on this song, and I think I've said this twice in the Discord already. This song, more than anything else, has made me appreciate the new Ethel Cain album, because this is like, what if Ethel Cain sucked ass? Like, what if Ethel Cain was really, really bad, and it lacked all the things that made her good, essentially, and that's what this song is.
Jackie,
which only made me more mad about how they gave the Ethel Cain album a really mid Pitchfork review, but then they lost their mind for this, of all things, in 2011.
Why? Like it's like puts on best Kim Gordon impression. Fuck California.
Jackie, does this song qualify for LA Brain?
Yes, even though I think like what they're trying to get at is that it's a South Dakota transplant. That's the whole idea of the song. But you're absolutely right that there is a strain of LA Brain that is the kind of person that moves to California and like, fuck this place, and is like, really? It kind of seems like you just like to be condescending about it, which I don't know. Like the fuck California of it all obviously does not resonate with me, the most LA brained member of the podcast, but I also just don't think that, like, I think this is a classic case of people reading too much into, like we kind of talked about with How to Dress Well and stuff like that, with some of these like mercurial artists where people are reading into the kind of vagueness of it and trying to determine some great meaning there, when in fact it's actually just this person like calling the style of the lyrics conversational is one way to say that it sucks ass. Like, you can just, it's not good. I had never heard the song before, and had never heard of Emma or the band that she was in before this, and I am 0% closer to understanding it, even though on paper, like when I read the lyrics to this on Genius, and like when you were describing the Pitchfork review, like I'm saying, like it does remind me of what I like about Ethel Cain, like in theory, but in execution, it's no, absolutely not.
One, it's EMA. It's her initials because her name's Erica, gotcha. Which is fine. That's fine. I'm not here. I'm on a stand. I don't like her.
Wolfgang uses the same letters as Goffwang?
Right?
Yes, exactly.
Right? But no, it's almost as if she's like, she wants to be Nick Cave almost. How she just like eventually just rambles on, and like it does Nick Cave in a bad way. And I love Nick Cave. Like, he's one of the greatest.
No, totally.
But like, that's what I just think of the whole time. It's just like, just wanting to, like, you know, over like Warren Ellis brooding bullshit, you know, she's just like rambling her fucking mouth on for too long. I'm just like, when does it end? This song sucks, by the way. Exactly. I think we all agree.
It's really bad.
Yeah, it's very bad.
Between this and me not liking the Ethel Cain record, I'm starting to think that the only people who really like the people who really can make good records about hating on the South are the people who haven't moved away from their home. They're still there.
Well, Ethel still lives in she lives in Alabama right
but
now.
she moved away from Florida, didn't she?
That's true.
She's in
yes.
That's what I'm saying is like, if you're still in your home state, you get it.
But why would you move from one god-awful state to another? Like,
yeah,
California.
Exactly. But this I still do not. You're exactly right though. Like with there's such a fine line between someone effectively doing the kind of forlorn frontman, I don't care, I'm just sort of tossing this off into the ether. Like the line between that being very compelling and very obnoxious is like so thin and all in the eye of the beholder generally. And I think this is a great example of like when that goes bad, it goes really bad.
Mm-hmm. But hey, Pitchfork loved it.
It stinks. It fucking stinks. It's not, again, the fucking drone is god awful and stupid. Our voice is terrible, like Kim Gordon, Nick Cave, like fusion dance. It's again, and also just like even as a very recent LA transplant, I will speak for Jackie here. If you're not from California or you're not from LA and you're like complaining about some of this shit, shut the fuck up. Move, get the fuck again.
That's always been my like the thing is that
I don't get to complain about this shit.
I'm not someone that says LA is a great place, and in fact, on very regular occasion, I will be the first one to tell you that this is a hive of scum and villainy that should probably be wiped off the face of the earth. But you're not allowed to complain about that if you're not from here, because if you're a transplant, you're part of the problem. Like. Essentially the exactly what you're talking about, like person that moves out to California and is like performatively trying to say like I'm better than this, but you also moved here. Like
it's like the anti-version of like the guys who were like, oh, New York, greatest city in the world. Oh,
it is like that exactly. Like the California thing is to be cooler than California, which someone just posted this in the Best New Pod Discord not too long ago. Mark Richardson put Emma Past Life Martyred Saints as his #1 album of the decade.
What? Oh my god!
That like takes Mark Richardson down
early 2010s. Early 2010s picture writers have just like a very specific brain disease that some have passed. Like I think Larry Fitzmaurice is someone who had that disease and has recovered from it. Which it's so sad that he keeps buying Cinnamon Toast Crunch and there's a special surprise in each box he buys. It's disturbing that it keeps happening to him.
He's got to check into that. Like I think somebody in the company has a grudge for him.
It's so funny looking at his top 10 because everything from like 12 to 2 is like very recent. So it's Burial Rival Dealer EP, Counting Downwards, Jamie XX In Color, Bill Callahan Apocalypse, One of Tricks Point Never Replica, Waxahachie American Weekend, Kendrick Lamar Good Kid Mad City, My Bloody Valentine MVP. You're like, okay. Aphex Twin Cyro, Fiona Apple Idler Wheel, Destroyer Kaputt. You're like, all right, let's see what's at the top of the list. The Caretaker and Empty Bliss Beyond This World, Emma Past Life Martyred Saints are his 1-2. Like, what?
Throwing that on top of like everything else is just insane.
Literally, what drugs are you on, Mark Richardson? And can I have some? Is my question.
Yeah. Here's again, it's this case where it's like it's easy to dunk, and I want to make fun of him, but it's also like, man, I got my own specific brain disease stuff going on with my own album of the year picks.
I left the office.
We're gonna have an episode very soon where I get to talk about my brain problem.
I once left the office for like 5 minutes to grab something out of my car, and I came back, and Matty had already put on The Redeemer by Dean Blunt. So we all have.
It wasn't The Redeemer. It was the new Dean Blunt record that's like freestyles and stuff.
Excuse me.
Freestyles.
Excuse me.
Wow,
Matty.
what a difference! What a difference!
I apologize.
Anyways, which Dean Blunt, hey, who will not be discussing on the series. I don't think he got any best new tracks.
I don't think he ever
but
has,
we'll be discussing when I do a bonus episode of my stuff. But that will not be till like very, very long from now. Yeah. Let's move on. Let's move on to our next song. Rose, what is our next song?
Oh, wow, these guys. It's been said that there's nothing duller than listening to someone else describe their dreams, but from the first heraldic strums of Grown Ocean, the closer on Fleet Fox's upcoming Helplessness Blues, Robin Pecknold's dream holds your attention. I'm as old as the mountains, still as starlight reflected in fountains, he sings as the band provides its signature rising sun harmonies. The point isn't the imagery of the dream, but the joy and wonder it instills in him. So his epiphanic lack of presumption and cynicism is, even more than the music, a nod to the band's 1960s folk rock forebears. And Fleet Foxes translate that lyrical exuberance into a lively, celebratory arrangement. Skylar Scale sets guitar darts playfully around the melodic lines. Josh Tillman plays a heartbeat tattoo on the bass drum. What does he mean by that? Like, a heartbeat tattoo on the bass drum. And flute trills announce a rousing finale. In that dream, I could hardly contain it, Pecknold sings. All my life, I will wait to attain it. All I can think of with the song, they mentioned him, is just Josh Tillman just sitting during the production of this album and just like being massively depressed because like he does nothing here, just barely anything, you know. Like Fleet Fox, the job of Fleet Fox's drummer is maybe one of the most thankless tasks you can have in music.
It's true. Yeah.
Of course he made an album about wanting to die.
He was busy writing a novel while he was, killing time in the studio.
It's a pretty interesting novel. It's like somewhere up on Tumblr.
This song is fine.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
good.
It's
and that's
one of their
all
best
I have to
songs.
say about it. Yeah.
It's one of their better ones because they're like actually doing stuff on it.
Yeah, but see, I'm probably one of those, like, Crack Up, the next record, which, this being the last song, like, I don't know if you guys have ever read where this song ends and then, like, the last few seconds of it are like the first few seconds of the first song on Crack Up.
Yeah, I have read
they
that.
Smack
Yeah.
together.
Oh, that's cool.
That record's so good. But I love Crack Up, but I have to thank Robin Pecknold because he's the reason that I love Ethiopian jazz now because of the sample. The Mulatu sample at the end of one of the songs, like, that just drops in out of nowhere. Like, what is this?
I think Fleet Foxes. Is this the first Fleet Foxes song that's like discussed in the series? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Fleet Foxes are an interesting band for me because I never like got into them like a whole bunch of other people got into them. I think I listened to Helplessness Blues and Crack Up and Shore like a handful of times each. And it's good, but I never got the like big obsession that I think a lot of people got with them. But even with that, they still like stood out as like easily the best of like this early 10s like indie folk gold rush basically. Like I think the year after this is when Mumford & Sons put out their first record and then the Lumineers come in and all those other like kind of car commercial bands that we talked about previously, they all kind of show up like right at this specific time period. And Fleet Foxes were always the ones that were kind of like talked about the most in like Pitchfork indie circles.
They were the thinking man's like folk revival. Like if you want,
they're the kind of the first to come on the scene, really.
Yeah, I forget because like the Mumford & Sons record, I remember years ago hearing it before it even came out. I think it.
The debut Fleet Foxes EP was like 2008, I think.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
And Sigh No More is 2009.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds about right. So I just feel like Fleet Foxes Robin Pecknold has made more interesting music the last two albums than these first two. No, not Grown Ocean. Grown Ocean's a great song, but I just feel like these latter albums are just more adventurous than, I don't know, these like records that
I cannot get into my opinions on Shore. I cannot.
Put on a clock.
I have never been
mad, and I don't need that
much of a Fleet Foxes person, and even though I definitely liked Crack Up a lot more than the previous ones, it also kind of like I liked Crack Up a lot more, but it also kind of clarified for me like, oh, this band is never going to be one of my bands. Like they were a band that I always tried to kind of get into because I do like folky stuff. It's not like I wasn't listening to a lot of twee ass bullshit in 2011. It's not like I was like better than this, but I was never quite the exact brand of hipster-y person that would be really deep in the Fleet Foxes bag. And coming back to this song for this playlist, I didn't love it, honestly. I kind of just, when Fleet Foxes comes on, like, unless it's the songs from Crack Up that I kind of remember as being like the intro of Crack Up with the kind of 3-part song, I think is really, really beautiful. And there's like a couple other songs, like Third of May is probably my favorite Fleet Foxes song ever, if I had to pick one. And there are a couple of like really big kind of striking, memorable moments. But for the most part, when a Fleet Foxes song comes on, like even the quote unquote good ones, like the really, like my brain just kind of turns off because I'm just sort of like, I know what this is doing. And even though I think it does it in a more thoughtful way, obviously, than like Imagine Dragons or like of Monsters and Men or whatever. Like I'd much rather listen to Fleet Foxes than this, but for the most part, I'm just not really ever in the mood to go back to this particular kind of folk sound.
Mm-hmm.
More like Grown Ocean, but spelled Groan.
I think I prefer this like larger sound that they're going with on this and Helplessness Blues than they did with like. I think I've listened to the self-title a couple of times, but that one just feels a little too, I think, like...
Yeah, that one, like, literally, there's a song on there that got, like, hugely popular because it got covered by Pentatonic.
Yeah.
Is that White Winter Hymnal?
Like, if that tells you anything about that album's whole vibe.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
And I think Mykonos also became, like, a really big hit for them without even, like, being on the album.
Also worth mentioning that a song off Sun Giant EP formed the sample for Pock Blood off of Danny Brown's Triple X.
Oh, I always forget about that.
And lest we forget,
they're very important.
But wait, how are we not talking about the obvious elephant in the room, Robin Pecknold being on the new Post Malone album?
Oh, yeah. I was gonna bring that up.
I haven't listened
neither
to
have
it.
I briefly, no, yeah, exactly. Someone brought up, hey, Robin Pecknold's on the new Post Malone album, and my first thought was, there's a new Post Malone album, which is like, not only something that it's like, obviously I'm not looking out for the new Post Malone album in the year 2022, but like the fact that it managed to sneak up on me without me hearing about it really says a lot about where Post Malone is at in this particular juncture. But my main take on Robin Pecknold is just that he's really hot. That's about it. Like,
I do think it says something about Fleet Foxes that like they haven't become. Like they've been able to maintain like a sort of, for lack of a better term, like respect within like the scene.
No, totally.
Absolutely.
They managed to outlive the sound of music that was all like they are not dated. They don't feel dated in the way that Mumford, even on like Helplessness Blues.
Yeah.
Like as much as I didn't love it coming back to it now, it doesn't have that same like stench on it the way that like the Lumineers, you can't hear a Lumineers song without thinking about those like, you know, restaurants where they serve you your meals in like mason jars and like they get you can imagine the decor right now, the like string lights and all that stuff. Like there's a certain era of folk music that just brutally like resembles that particular kind of like interior decoration.
Yeah, the string lights and everything. Yeah,
exactly. Just like like gentrified twee ramen place is like what I'm thinking of essentially. And like I think Fleet Foxes, especially with Crack Up, like managed to transcend getting stuck in that particular period of time and managed to demonstrate themselves as we're actually doing something that's like interesting and worthy of examination. Even though it's not for me, I do respect them more than most of these bands.
They didn't even have like a downturn like Bon Iver did.
I mean, Bon Iver's downturn is in the eye of the beholder. The AJs of the AJs
the eye
of the world,
the eye of the Bemoser.
Exactly. Like the AJs of the world are losing their mind for Bon Iver more than ever. But I know exactly what you mean.
He's still like the cash cow for his label. I believe it's Jaguar.
Correct. Yeah. It's not to go on too much of a tangent, but it is kind of crazy seeing how like the secretly group labels, like how things have shifted, where it's like early 2010s, like Jaguar was the big one, and then now it's like Dead Oceans because it's just like they have fucking Mitski and Japanese Breakfast and
indie rock
Phoebe.
juggernaut.
Jaguar is back this year though, putting out the They Hate Change album back to back with the Angel Olsen album is like.
I will say it's definitely very good seeing like some of these like legacy indies put out some like big swing records, like stuff that like they wouldn't have put out like 10 years ago, like the They Hate Change record.
I mean,
Saddle
even
Creek
still,
putting out the Pendant album.
The They Hate Change album
Merge
still blows my
Records
mind.
put out a Don Richard album in the year 2020. Like, what on earth?
Yep.
Yeah. I think Merge also is doing put out the Ibido Sound Machine record this year.
They've put out all that stuff.
They've been putting out a Bibio for quite a while.
Yeah,
that they have.
Shouts out to the legacy indies, changing things up. 4AD, we're looking at you. We're seeing that you're, besides like Barty Strange, like y'all keeping it traditional. 4AD, step up a little bit.
For 4AD, that's the thing. We keep bringing it up. The problem is
they try to step it up. Here's the thing. They did it too early.
The problem is not their signings. Their signings have been great. Anamije, I always forget how to say his name.
I think it's Anjumile.
Anjumile, like, great signing. Barty Strange, great signing. Even Helado Negro, great signing. The problem is that you can't just sign Helado Negro and then just assume that it's going to keep moving in the right direction. If you do, and they fucked up his album campaign so bad, it makes me furious. But
actually, I want to make a correction. 4AD, they did do the risky signings, but they were about 10 years earlier because, of course, they famously put out a Space Ghost Perp record in 2012.
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
Which is a very fun fact. It's just like 4AD and Space Ghost, like this, they just don't like.
Yeah, blog rap was an interesting time for everyone involved.
I mean, fucking Odd Future and ASAP Rocky, that like, there's some labels like, shit, we gotta get on this, and 4AD was like, we gotta have our, because obviously Space Ghost Perp, produced a lot of the early Rocky
but
stuff.
Yeah, so. This year the run of Jaguar, Sharon Van Etten, They Hate Change, and Angel Olsen is pretty crazy.
Yeah. But we've got two more songs. We need to again. I think we are definitely,
and one of the actually both of them are just insane.
This is going to be a long episode, folks. We're already, again, the recording is over 2 hours. And we got two more songs, and these are two songs.
Keep moving.
We got a lot.
Really, I'm not even going to read the review on this one. I feel like you just got to play the snippet and just like let people hear it. Really hit. It's just
this will shock everybody. I love this song.
It's so good.
So good.
It is.
It's so. This is like one of the foundational texts of the decade to come. It's just like you can hear everything in this.
Oh god, it's so good.
I remember when it leaked. We all do probably. It was so good.
Yes.
I wasn't there for it, but I listened to the leak. Like as soon as people were like, "This J. Paul stuff is pretty good," I was just like, "Okay." And like it took me a while, but then it's just like, "Oh yeah, this is the guy. Like this should have been the guy."
I always prefer Jasmine a little bit more to this, just because it's a little more upbeat. But yeah, fucking J. Paul.
I think if you just put a beat behind Wilhelm scream, it's
yeah.
Yes.
I brought it up first when we were talking about James Blake, and now I get to finally rope back around to it, which is the discussion of like R&B artists in this episode that could have like been what the future of music for the next decade would have been. And J. Paul is like maybe the biggest what if out of any artist that came about.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, like, imagine if that record had come out and everyone had heard, Straight Outta Mumbai, like,
yeah,
like heads would implode.
Where would we be now?
Yeah, which I think J. Paul, it really is just like a mix. Obviously, like the leak didn't help things, but I think it really just like him being just such a staunch perfectionist is like what's probably. I mean, it's what's killed his career. It's just the fact that like he's so fucking good. He's
the male Sky Ferreira is exactly what it is.
I wouldn't say male Sky Ferreira.
No,
I wouldn't say Sky Ferreira. It's a different deal. Like Sky's a different deal because Sky is a perfectionist, I guess. Like, but like
Sky is like trapped in like
Sky's beyond micromanaged too. The major label.
Again, the thing with Sky is that Sky Ferreira is not like an innovative artist in any means. J. Paul was an innovative artist that like made breakthroughs
slightly, but I'm not gonna. For the most part, I get your point. Yes.
So many people like try to jock. Like they couldn't jock J. Paul's full sound, but they obviously jock certain things like the side chaining and stuff. I would compare J. Paul being sort of the 2010s equivalent of like Arthur Russell. Like that's who I would compare J. Paul to.
That's a good one.
Of just being this very staunch perfectionist who just hasn't had a whole lot of stuff released, where it's just, like it's
decided by an influence is everyone.
Exactly. Where it's just like the stars that just has become solidly influential over the years, where it's like, despite putting out, again, has only officially, obviously now the self-titled record did finally get released. But for a number of years, it's just like there was really only 2 officially released Jai Paul songs. That was it. And they're both so fucking good and just so, like, again, you weren't hearing anything like this. And even then, still now, no one has been able to recreate what Jai Paul was doing.
There are a lot of people that you can see little strands of it, like, and artists that do it less successfully, like people like looking at just like the kind of fans also like of like Blood Orange and Mount Kimby and Vegan and Jimmy Stack. Like there are all these people that are trying to do this particular fusion of kind of post 2010 electronic music and R&B and indie and jazz, and just sort of fusing them together into this thing that feels genuinely like new and exciting. And like we talked about, like how most of the first couple playlists we did were just kind of the last decade repeating itself, when this is like maybe the most kind of innovative song we've heard yet, as far as how much this just expands the palette of like what becomes kind of critically acclaimed music in the 2010s and what becomes like Pitchfork core in the 2010s.
The Leak was like the biggest for a few years. It was like the greatest album that never existed.
Yep.
Like I remember it even got like a write up in a review in fucking Rolling Stone when it leaked.
Yeah.
Which again, the leaked record, which is again, I still consider it the self-title, although now it's like Bait Ones or whatever the fuck it's called.
Yeah.
But it's again, even the current version that's on streaming, like even with some of the samples out, it's still just like an incredible record. Although I will say, if you can seek out, again, I don't want to encourage our listeners to illegally download music. However, if you can seek out the original leaked version, I recommend it, just because there's some samples in there that are like very important, ones that are like definitely like you gotta have these in there. Like there's the Harry Potter sample, there's the Cat Stevens Yusuf sample in Secret Garden. It's just, again, it's an incredible record. Like I would still consider it like one of my favorite albums of the 2010s. Like it's just it's crazy. And the fact that like Jai Paul, again, like he put that out and then had the put out 2 new songs in like 2019 and then like disappeared again for a couple of years.
Archival releases.
Yeah. Disappeared for he had an archival release, I think, like last year or whatever, and then like disappears for basically for a while, and then like randomly popped up this year in like a fucking Atlanta episode. Jai Paul is a fucking, and obviously the Paul Institute stuff and all that.
What happened with that? I was gonna mention that. What is that deal?
I literally want to say that like they were doing a thing, and I assume like they got funding cut or something, and that's why like it just hasn't been a whole lot going on. Like just like funding got pulled out, so it is what it is.
It's impossible not to, without just moving us on to the next song, we can keep talking about this, but like it's impossible not to think about Jai Paul without thinking about The Weeknd and thinking about how at the time they occupied such a similar space of like, who is this mysterious person that's changing music, and how The Weeknd has become the biggest pop star in the universe and how Jai Paul like doesn't exist essentially. And the kind of the 2 different paths that they head off on for different, and they're very different artists. Like I'm not trying to say
I think it comes down to types of personality, like Jai Paul is just like some guy, and meanwhile The Weeknd is like earth-shatteringly horny, like I
what
feel
a transition. What a transition.
He is also some guy, like that is the thing about The Weeknd, is that as much as he is this dark, mysterious character that he markets himself as,
he can't do that anymore though. Like
exactly, he's too much. We know he's a nerd now. Like we know
did the
that
Super Bowl halftime show. You can't
doing,
do
the
that.
Old guy makeup and the face bandages, and it's really
exactly. But I also still appreciate that. Like now, I think now he's settled. Let's just all right. Do we have anything else to say about Jai Paul before?
I think we've made the transition, Jackie. I think we've made the move.
Right,
just like this next song makes an excellent transition.
Oh yes, fantastic transition. We are talking, of course, about the Weeknd song, the song from House of Balloons, which is, of course, the titular House of Balloons, which, funny enough, Pitchfork only gave Best New Track to House of Balloons. It's not a Best New Track for House of Balloons Glass Table Girls. which is weird.
I think it's because I guess the original version of the song that came out
they
was
were separate.
Just it was like I think it was before the mixtape came out.
They are. We'll be talking about them one and the same because they really
I
are.
just want to
one
point out because
yes, totally.
I mentioned hours ago at this point I hadn't heard either part of this song before this week.
It's crazy, but I'm very glad that much like 6 foot, 7 foot, that this song is as undeniable as I hoped.
It's so good. Like I just immediately was like, this is the best song of the week. I can't. Nothing is competing with that ridiculous part where he just like starts like when the chorus hits again, he just starts singing along with the sample. Whoa!
Yes, it's not just the sample. It's like having the sample loop at the beginning and then also interpolating it into the chorus and taking this thing that is so recognizable and completely turning it on its head. Like, obviously that was the big selling point of the Weeknd, is it's like this guy's making R&B, but he's sampling Beach House and Cocteau Twins.
And that's what drew me in, is like those samples and like just seeing it as an enigma and the question of who is this person or persons that was behind the Weeknd back then, because 10 years ago we didn't know. Or 11 years ago, we didn't know. And by the end of the whole trilogy of mixtapes, I was over it. And I'm like, they put out Kissland, and I'm like, bored. And there's never, I kind of never went back. I only go back to the mixtapes. I mean, I don't, if I never heard I Can't Feel My Face Ever Again, speaking of cocaine, I'd be okay with that.
I totally get that. And as I was saying to Rose when she heard the song, like, now you understand why we were all sticking it out through those other Weeknd albums. Like, hold on. This guy made...
He's still the guy.
Blinding Lights is an undeniable bang.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I really like... So Beauty Behind the Madness and Kissland are like two of the worst albums of the decade, not of really big artists, of like albums that people talk about a lot. Both of those albums are really rough, really like the transition from mixtape Weeknd to major label pop star Weeknd was not as seamless as it would seem now that he's like the biggest artist in the world. Like it was a really rocky transition where even as he was getting all of these great hits, like there are so many songs from that era, like The Hills and like all that stuff that were like sensationally popular songs. But you're right that like a lot of people after the mixtapes just sort of tuned out, and we'll get into the mixtapes and the song in particular. But I do think that the Weeknd, you're exactly like so much of it at this time was the mystique, and now that we kind of know, there's a little bit of that removed. But I do think he's figured out again how to be the pop star while also kind of recreating. Like, I think Dawn FM is a fucking fantastic album.
I haven't listened to all of it yet, and like one of my favorite writers is Stephen Hyden, who says it's like one of his favorite albums of the year. Which shocks me because he's like, this one song sounds like The War on Drugs. And I was like, no fucking way.
Yeah. Less than Zeros does, though.
I know. I still haven't heard it because I'm afraid
I will say
I'll like it too much.
The War on Drugs is a decent comp. The real thing that song sounds like is Future Islands.
Yeah.
That song is a Future Islands song, essentially. And it's one of the best. Dawn FM I actually think you would like, because he does get back to a lot of the musical influences of the first record, and Danny Lopatin is a big part of that. Like now him being the full-time sort of executive producer / best friend of Abel.
Yeah.
Like that creative collaboration has really helped him get back into the right. There was just a little too much Max Martin in those kind of middle Weeknd albums, and not enough of the kind of the kind of dark, mysterious aspect of these first records. But when you go back to this first one, like you understand why we were willing to wade our way through Kissland and try to talk ourselves into it, because holy shit, did this these mixtapes hit like a nuclear bomb in 2011.
They're so good.
Yeah, like
they hold up so well too. They really do.
I have a copy of Trilogy on CD that was in my car in high school. a very horny teenager move of me, but yeah, I love all of the mixtape stuff is still, I think, really, really holds up well. Thursday has always been my least favorite. I think that's a pretty universal opinion. My big take is that, and I've always been of this opinion, I think Echoes of Silence is by far the best of the three, even though I think House of Balloons, Glass Table Girls is the Weeknd song, and I understand why House of Balloons was like, besides it just being the first one, like I understand why House of Balloons, why when it came out again on streaming, like the original version of it, why that was such a big deal. Like, this is the definitive Weeknd project. When I think about like what his whole deal is, I think Echoes of Silence is like the best front to back project he's ever made. And is the horniest album of all time, perhaps. But
just teenage Jackie.
Yes, and current Jackie, honestly. But yeah, without getting into my my research I did for this podcast in the weeks leading up to this episode, House of Balloons still fucking hits. This song is just enormous, titanic. I don't even know what to say about it. Seeing it done at the Super Bowl, which wasn't even, he didn't even really do the whole song, but just including House of Balloons and that sample when they're like all running down the field and they're playing the Happy House like part. I was just, that was so electric for me still.
The acknowledgement like, that of where I came from that has gotten me here now to the Super Bowl halftime show, like that, of course.
And it really is insane. Like even crazier than the Weeknd's journey to that halftime show is the fact that, and I've said this before, that 10 years ago, Daniel Lopatin was making Replica. And then 10 years later, he's the musical director of the halftime show at the Super Bowl. Like the series of events that has to happen in order for those to go from one to the other. But yeah,
the Safdie brothers are the biggest arbiters of culture we now have.
They so are. Yeah, you are not wrong.
We live in a post-Safdie universe. Like Julia Fox is famous now. The Weeknd and Daniel Lopatin are best friends.
Don't get me started on Julia Fox. I love her, and I don't want to go down that road. That's a different podcast.
It's just insane how much of that movie was an inflection point.
Seriously,
no, yeah, like,
you're not wrong.
So much of it has reverberated in our culture since.
Well, I'm currently playing the House of Balloons pilot from the Super Bowl.
It's so good. I mean, Susie, it was the exact right moment to sample Susie and the Banshees too. Like, there's just so much about this mixtape that, like I said, like as much as it was about like who is this dark mysterious man, like this guy is just a music nerd at his heart. Like when you like Don FM being a great example where he's like sampling city pop and he's sampling like all these very like internet music nerd type things and reference points, and that was so much of what the appeal was for both writers and for people that were like getting really into this music and the sort of vibes-based approach of like, let me just take the kind of dreamy atmosphere of a beach house song and just put that as a loop and then do an R&B song over the top of it. And it seems kind of simple on its face to us now, but at the time it really did feel like head exploding.
Yeah, this is it's the like. Here's the thing: we are talking about a lot of great songs this week. This is by far the best song this week to me.
Absolutely,
hands down.
It's just like
undeniable.
Again,
well, maybe Kaputt. I'm sorry. I you can't.
Kaputt again. Like I said, it is
in the same vein almost.
Yeah, here's the, like Russ,
two different kinds of the same song.
Two Coke songs.
Two Day Man and Night Man.
It is up against some very tough competition, but even then, it's just like House of Balloons just hits like a fucking brick every time. The Susie and the Banshee sample, like it's a song that just it lives in its own world.
Yep.
Also,
you immediately know who this guy is. You immediately know the world he's in. It's just the imagery is so strong in the song. And we haven't even gotten to Glass Table Girls.
We haven't even brought the 707s out. We haven't even brought the 707s
out. What kind of rich jerk do I look like? Do I look like I have that kind of furniture in my house? Absolutely.
Every the Weeknd fan has gone on the journey of Googling what the 707 tables are and learning how expensive they are, and then going, oh my God. What is this man on? But my favorite detail besides the Susie and the Banshee sample, obviously, I love all of the synth work on this song, but especially that one really buzzy synth that kind of sounds like that one Bloody Beetroots song. Like it's just so like late 2010s kind of rave music, and the way that that's being incorporated with this 80s goth music and with R&B. Like, it's just so many things that were either in like things I was into at the time when this came out, or things that I would end up getting really into in the years to come. And for that reason, the song is just this like ultimate text for me and my tastes.
Bless you.
And then Glass Table Girls is just as good. And of all of the kind of 2-part songs that I can think of, the kind of like the Nightses of the world, the beat switches, where it's all about like there's the first half and the second half, and either they have separate names or maybe they don't. Like, this is one of the most smoothly executed, where it feels like an extension of the first part while feeling distinct. Like, it doesn't feel like you've hit play on the next track. It just feels like the same party you were at has just gone into a different back room. Essentially, it's like, okay, we were having fun out there, and now we're going into the back room and doing even more cocaine.
Oh my God! Just again, you almost can't even put into words just how good this song is. Like, it's just, oh my God! I mean, when we mentioned Susie and the Banshees, so I really do legitimately think like it's one of the greatest sample flips of all time.
It sure
like,
is.
It is an all-time sample flip.
Right out of the gate.
The loop at the beginning, exactly. Yeah, it grabs your ear right immediately.
It just the emotion in Abel's voice, which also another artifact of this time, just the fact that people thought that the Weeknd was like a band and not just like a guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's very funny in retrospect.
I mean, it was essentially just Il Angelo and the Weeknd, basically.
Yeah, but like, I mean, the chorus here, like, if it hurts to breathe, open a window, and just the melody,
which is the chorus of Happy House. Like, they've taken that. Yeah, like you've talked about it before, how this song is this like ultimate, basically, like, our life is meaningless nihilism, like post sort of George Bush, just like, let me pull up what I said about this, because when we did our one of our Q, I think it might have been Q1 2021 where I talked about this record as a wild card. Let me see what I said. I'm gonna go back really quick and see what I said. But it's really this really rocks. I just pulled up the House of Balloons Wikipedia page trying to find something, and immediately was hit by the song "High for This" was featured in the promo for the final season of the HBO show Entourage in July 2011. What a time!
What a time to be alive.
Indeed.
Johnny Drama, Vinny, Turtle.
House of Balloons. What can you even say? Yeah, it's just this is the text of the week. I'm glad you've heard it now, Rose, because now you understand why we have the brainworms.
This is the guy. This is the guy.
Yeah, I'll just just read verbatim what I said in our Soft Sounds Q1 piece. House of Balloons, it's a brilliant album that really represents the younger generation still reeling from the effects of the 2007-2008 financial crisis. House of Balloons doesn't really make any grand political statements, but you do truly feel something when the Weeknd sings about how much he hates drugs and sex, but yet can't pull himself away from the world he's been drawn into, because what the fuck else is there to do? On House of Balloons, the Weeknd has given up on trying to find an escape, because the world outside of this happy house he found himself in, it ain't much better. It's just it's an incredible record. Obviously the entire album's great, but this song in particular is just like,
I'm gonna listen to those mixtapes later when I get.
You gotta dig in this.
You're gonna have a great time with those, right?
I'm going to go to a new job, and like I'm gonna be doing like stupid data entry stuff, and like while I'm listening to it, I'm just gonna be listening to him to sing about cocaine.
Yeah,
yes, exactly.
I can't even. Yeah, it's just hard to describe. It's this case where it's just like he can get away. The Weeknd can get away with a bajillion bad musical ideas, which thankfully he's stopped as of recently. Like, I think like after the weird transition period between like Kissland and Be Behind the Madness, and to some extent Starboy, like he's very much found his groove, where he's been able to really meld what he was doing back in 2011 and like his pop side, where those sides are very much like working together much more gracefully. But yeah, no, this record's a fucking revelation. I didn't get to say it yet because I referenced it during we talked about How to Dress Well, but again, peak PBR and B here.
PBR and B. Never heard that one. What a term. I love it.
The guy that I mentioned this last week, but the guy that came up with that term literally like publicly apologized for it because he was like, he meant it as kind of a one-off line in a album review, and then people were like, yeah, that's it. That's the name of this new genre. He's like, no. I didn't want you to like make a whole genre around this. I was just kind of trying to make a one-off joke, but that's exactly like. We talked about how to dress well. We've talked about Salem. Like this is that kind of era of music really crystallizing in this kind of early 2010s period. And I think The Weeknd is the person single-handedly most responsible for that shift in the stuff. Like Drake doesn't make so much of the music he makes in the next decade, if not for The Weeknd. And so much of this kind of bleary-eyed nihilism really does creep its way into popular music via The Weeknd, and we have him to thank for that. Oh, the line where he says, "So don't blame it on me, girl, because you wanted to have fun" at the end of verse 2, just like, oh, this is our ultimate like demon mode Weeknd. Like that's just the
man is evil.
The best version of The Weeknd, much like Future, is when he's at his most nefarious. Generally,
God, you can't even, again, I mean, this and Jai Paul, just like two of the most innovative, like just coming out the gate of just two of the most innovative, revolutionary, like R&B artists, pop R&B artists, ever.
And you buried
like,
these behind EMA. For shame.
We did. You have to trudge through.
Oh, I know. You
to
gotta
be
get
fair,
through the
none
shit
of
to
them
get
really
to the
made a
champagne.
statement as striking as "fuck California."
All right.
Well,
that I think that does it. I think that's. I don't have anything more to say.
Exactly.
What
We
else?
said plenty.
We're almost 2.5
good.
hours into recording. We gotta wrap this one up.
Yeah, tune in next week because we're gonna meet some guys. You might be familiar with them. Some names like I don't know if you've heard of these guys. Bon Iver, Jamie XX.
Yeah, like we said, the decade is kicked off. We are now fully in the 2010s.
Lamar.
Yeah, we're gonna get into some stuff next week. But Rusty, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I would like to come back sometime.
Of course. Is there anything you want to plug? Anything you want to plug before we head out?
Yeah, my show. This is not a show. It airs Sundays at 5 p.m. On a radio station that probably no one can reach because you're not in North Carolina. But you can always just follow the show on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at A Show. This is not 2 hours every week. The best new music I can put together to wind down your weekend with, as I'm wont to say on the air. Yay!
There you go.
Yeah.
Dill, thank you for bringing your return. Is this your first podcast appearance since Gotta Get That?
It is. It very much is.
Yes.
Oh God, yeah. This is
Gotta get
again.
that.
Never get that. But
again,
yes, thank you for having me. I don't have anything to plug. I will plug the Indie Heads Patreon, which
hit the Patreon, please.
Hit
again,
that Patreon. Like, join the Discord if you're not in the Discord.
Yeah,
it will help you understand some of the things we kind of bring up just offhandedly.
For $1 a month, just one measly $1 a month, you can watch all of us go insane on a daily basis.
For $1 a month, you can understand why we talk about Chubby Checker at least once an episode.
And the Big Papa. The
Your what?
Oh God. This is why I stay off of Discord, because of people like you. No, I'm kidding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hello, baby. All right.
Hello.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the Indie Heads podcast. Thank you for joining us this week, our lovely guests. See you later. Bye-bye.
They say success is the best revenge, so I beat this shay up with a stack of magazines. I'm in. Oh, not again. Another critic writing report. I'm stabbing any blog and faggot hipster with a pitchfork. Still suicidal I am. I'm Wolf. Tyler put this fucking knife in my hand. I'm Wolf. Ace gon' put that fucking hole in my head. And I'm Wolf. That was me who shoved the cock in your bitch. Fuck the fame and all the hype, G. I just wanna know if my father would ever like me. But I don't give a fuck, so he's probably just like me. A motherfucking goblin.
Fuck everything, man.
That's what my conscience said. Then it bunny hopped off my shoulder. Now my conscience much is dead. Now the only guidance that I had is splattered on cement. Actions speak louder than words. Let me try this shit. Dead.